Commission, would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you for coming, everyone. We have a very busy agenda tonight. Let's start with our roll call. Danielle?
Jeff Penzine,
Here.
Angela Willis,
Here.
David Newbill,
Here.
Lynn Shank,
Yes, ma'am.
Dan Crimmins,
Here.
Keith Wiederholt,
Here.
Mike Dowling.
Here. Okay, first, just looking at today's agenda, obviously it's quite a packed agenda. I guess I would add one proposed revision myself, and that would be item 11. I'd like to add an update by the Groveland Township Residents Advisory Committee as 11A. And we move the July agenda discussion to 11B. Any other changes to the agenda?
May you get 3 minutes to speak?
Hello.
We're not there yet.
So just with regard to the agenda, would there be any other changes? If none, I would entertain a motion to approve.
I make we make the approval of today's agenda with the change for item 11 for June the 15th, 2026.
Second. David, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the agenda as amended is approved. Moving to the review of minutes from our last scheduled meeting on May 18th, which I was excused from attending. Thank you, Angela, for
Doing an excellent job.
doing the heavy lifting. That's appreciated. For those who were in the room, the unapproved minutes were included with tonight's packet.
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of May 18th, 2026.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, there being none, the minutes are approved as presented. All right, so next on tonight's agenda, we will move to the item 7, public hearing, beginning with the staff reports. Caitlin is here. Caitlin, I understand you have had a chance to review Tim's review of the engineering components to the site plan review for.
So I looked at the revised plans. I'm the planner for the township, and so I can speak to that, but then also reviewed the letter from Tim, who is your engineer.
Correct.
Since he's not here tonight, I can speak a little bit to that. Yes.
Very good. Well, I guess according to the agenda, I would invite you to do so at this time.
Okay. So you should be looking at the June 3rd review letter. So in your packet was the first review letter, more or less an email, just kind of going over the basic preliminary components. And then the second revised plans, which is resulting in the June 3rd review letter. So as many of you know, this is proposed to be a cold storage warehouse, essentially. They're proposing it to be off of Big Sky Road, which is part of a industrial site condominium development. So the overall complex was developed. There is some drainage across to the north, which becomes relevant as you go through our review letters, but to get context of the area. And so this applicant is proposing to have essentially a long driveway that goes from the road. There's a gate that's there, dumpster enclosure to the right. Continue down the driveway, there is a small parking lot. This warehouse facility is not proposing to have any staff on site at like long periods of time. No one is stationed to report there. They'll go for heavy equipment storage, is my understanding, kind of conduct their business and then move along. And then there's the one main building that's there. So looking over the second page of the review letter, it's split into two pieces of content, essentially looking at minimum site plan information. So this is information you could choose to waive, or applicant can provide in revised plans to be satisfactory So the first one's talking about utilities and site infrastructure. As you may have noticed on the plans, they're not proposing to have any well or septic put into this building. It is meant for clear cold or warehouse cold storage. There's no employees planned to station there, so that is why you don't see those utilities. The building department did do their review, and they were agreeable to put a porta potty there. So in case of an event by somebody, they do have proper sanitary services without talking to a neighbor. But that is the intention there, is that more or less it's not proposed there. Building department, for all health code compliances, it does meet that component requirement. They do have stormwater management drainage. This is more of an engineering comment, but your township engineer did review their letter, looked at the minimal amount of runoff that is anticipated, and anticipate that that is what the condo designed would run off into that northern drainage area. So drainage is not a major concern. They will continue to evaluate that as we continue through this review process. Regarding lighting, the applicant did provide some limited photometric or lighting plan, but we need a little bit more information to verify compliance with various different components, which will bring us into the second part of the letter. So the first part is talking about parking lots, in which we do require that it has to be some type of stripping, and so we require specifically 4-inch stripping, so that just has to be a note on the site plan to verify that that's the compliance for that, and to have those dimensions for those handicap or dimensional spacing. The site plan is to scale, so you can take your engineer ruler and verify it, but it is easier for the layman person to just have a dimension that's put there to verify that compliance. For access, I defer to the fire department regarding the Knox box and the adequate notations there. For the loading space, so if it is receiving and distributing of material of merchandise by a vehicle, you are required to put in a loading space. So the planning commission does have discretion that you could interpret based on use, and as it's described, that the loading area that's specifically shown, so they have a small parking lot they have in front of their building, but not a dedicated loading space for like a semi truck. And so the planning commission could consider this sufficient for adequate spacing on site, even though it doesn't fully meet, but again, they're not a merchandise operation. If they were, there would be absolutely a required loading space, but they are not that type of operation. So that is a discretionary item they'll need direction from the planning commission on. Regarding exterior lighting, so the proposed bay doors are about 14 feet in height, and so we just need a cleanup of the different dimensions. There is a note there that indicates the lighting height and how that would impact then the foot candle readings and show where that 0 is. So we do require an average foot candle reading in a parking lot area, and so showing essentially some of those benchmarks would better evaluate for us that they are in compliance. I believe it is the applicant's intention to meet that. It is pretty minor to just move the light fixture a little bit, have a little bit more intensity, and cover more of that parking lot to meet that average that's required in that parking lot area. And then, as I mentioned, we already talked about stormwater management. So later on in our discussion, after public comment, we go into the board discussion. I will note that the planning commission does want to make sure we review the approval standards, so I'll save that portion of my review till later, but we want to make sure we're doing an approval based on those approval standards. So OHM, your township engineer, they conducted their review of the plan, so they mentioned, as I mentioned earlier, the water and sanitary facility services, and that based on the fire chief and the building department's review, it would appear to be somewhat sufficient, other than we both defer to the fire chief on the water system. Stormwater management I already discussed. Regarding the grading, the existing grading more or less goes from the north and the northeast. And so with those proposed, they do not appear to have any proposed improvements that would significantly change the existing drainage pattern. So there is nothing significant worrisome about the drainage. There was some additional detail they would like to have on the cross-section associated with the parking lot paved areas to ensure that it meets the township standard requirements. So that's relatively simple to modify and validate. So they do have other permits that they have to do from other Oakland County agencies, so soil erosion permit specifically. And so they do put in the recommendation that they do a contingent review. The next step in the process after a site plan would be to do engineering and building plan review. And so they think that that would be appropriate for it to be conditional upon the fire department's review, additional information on the stormwater calculations to be shown on the plan, and then looking at the cross sections associated with the aggregate base that's there. And so with that, that's the first two review letters, and I'll hand it over to you for the fire review.
We needed to make sure that the gate is a 20-foot clear distance, when the gate's open, so that we can make sure we can get the truck through. 20 foot wide all the way up the driveway, vertical clearance of 13.6, all weather driving surface, which I think you just kinda touched base on. I see there's a driveway's minimum maximum grade, I only see the 6 degree slope on the driveway, I don't see the minimum or the maximum grades on there. The distance from the road to all portions of the building, I don't see on there how long the drive is. I see it's 20 foot wide. The turnaround, it's gotta be within 150 feet, the fire access road isn't just the driveway, it's up into the parking lot. The access road should be within 150 feet of any portion of the exterior wall of the building. There shouldn't be any dead ends or cul-de-sacs in there. Sorry, I'm trying to pull this blueprint back up. As long as the parking lot's not full, we should be able to turn around the truck in there, that should not be an issue. We wanted to make sure that confirmation of the parking spaces aren't gonna interfere with any kind of turnaround. It shows a Knox box on the gate, depending upon the gate, it might need a padlock, which is a Knox padlock, our key would still work, and they'll also need a Knox box on the building itself. Need more information on the gate, is it clear with the opening, what direction to travel, is it manual or power? Do they have a fail-safe operation for power failure or emergency release? The Knox will have the fire department key access. And the setback from Big Sky, is there enough room to allow us, the apparatus to stop and stay off the road? The address, there is no address out there yet. Before construction starts, we need a reflective address on the site. The fire lanes need to be marked, but that would probably be on the building set, not the site plan.
So the fire lanes could be on the site plan, because that shows your maneuverability, and we don't want parking spaces where we have fire lanes.
The dumpster, where he has the dumpster at, we just wanna make sure if somebody's in there emptying, that it's not blocking, that we can still get through. Exterior lighting clearance, I did talk to him on the set here, it says 13.2 inches, most of it is 13.6, but if it's on the building, I'm not concerned with it hitting our trucks, being at 13.2, but you address that to the camp a lot, and they need adjustments. Utility access is cold storage, so they shouldn't have any, water or gas there. I think that's all I got.
Okay, thank you, Stacy, and thank you, Caitlin.
That's for later.
We'll get there. We'll get there. So I guess at this time, I would move, we're gonna go to public hearing. I would move that we open the public hearing for file number PH 26-0002 for review and consideration of site plan number SP 26-0001 for a cold storage warehouse on a commercially zoned property, parcel ID number 0218351009, located on Big Sky Drive in Holly, Michigan, owner applicant Jim Stevens of Stevens Land Trust. Can I get a second? Second. Any opposed? Or all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we're now in public hearing. Is the applicant here tonight? Your name, sir?
Jim Stevens.
Okay, thank you for coming. You brought any,
So this is my neighbor
My name's Ahmed, I'm just a neighbor.
okay,
on the adjacent property.
all right, very good. I guess we're in public comment. Sir, do you have, well, why don't we do this? Just to try to keep things orderly. What I understand, just to summarize again for the benefit of the public hearing, you are proposing to construct a 3,200 square foot storage building, driveway and parking areas, and associated site improvements, correct? Correct. The building use is indicated as warehouse / storage for materials, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so is there anything you would add to that, people who are in attendance tonight that showed up to voice concerns or support for the site plan application should know?
I'm a first-time business owner. This is my first time doing this. I work for the Penske Automotive Group. I'm just trying to figure this out like everybody else, and I appreciate the opportunity, and, I'm just trying to make it happen, I guess, so.
Well, it's a pleasure having you here. I'm sure myself and my fellow commissioners have some questions tonight, not only for yourself, probably for our consultants and our fire department representative also. Sir, did you come to make a comment for
Yeah.
or against the application?
I'd just like to say that I'm the neighbor that sold Jim the property, and when I talked to Jim, he said, he'd get it cleaned up in a hurry and this and that, and he's a man of his word, basically. Everything he told me, he did, and he did it in an immediate fashion. I mean, there's not much more I can say. He'd be an asset to the community, he'd be an asset to the township. It'd be great to have that park filled up too. So, basically to me, it's all a win-win situation, but I'm not the power that be, so.
Could I ask your name one more time just for,
Name and address for the record.
yes, thank you. Your name and your address.
Mike Ottman, Ottman. I'm on lot 5.
Lot 5, that's one of
At
the adjacent
that's the
parcels.
tech park, yeah.
You're the owner?
Yeah.
The gentleman to your right,
So he's my business partner, so he has helped me with the day-to-day operations, so he's been involved with the site planning and everything, so no problem one. Because we're very transparent on everything. When we do things and make decisions, we make it as a whole, we make it as a team, so.
okay. Do you have anything to add for the discussion?
No, sir.
Okay. Danielle, this was posted, correct? Mailing? All right, and I guess Mike, you're the only interested non-applicant in the room. Is anyone else here to voice public comment on the site plan review for Stevens Trust? No? Yes, sir. Your name and your, pardon?
Is there a site plan?
Yes.
Yes, that was provided to the planning commission tonight. It was also posted online with the packet for tonight's meeting, correct? Any other public comment on the application? Yes, Carrie?
You said it was posted online just now? Is it on the website?
I believe our packets are available online on the township website, yes.
And just quickly, can you describe briefly for the public what this cold storage facility will be used for? And also if you are in any way part of the OHM, sorry?
It's public comment.
I'm not affiliated with OHM.
Okay.
You're talking about the the site plan company?
I think that's a reference to the township engineering firm.
Yeah, I just wondered if you were part of the township engineering, if you worked for them at all. And then I also am asking, what the cold storage facility's purpose will be. Just since I haven't had. a
This
chance
is
to
public
look at it
comment,
in a nutshell.
not question.
I'd be happy to answer that. I'm just storing equipment. I got some small excavators, I got a couple tractors, some, implements that go on my tractors and stuff, you know, just being able to store them inside, keep them out of the weather.
Does that answer your question? Any other comment to offer, on the site plan applicant's behalf or otherwise? No? Okay. So I guess at this point, we should move from public comment. So I would therefore make a motion, do I have to restate all of what I said earlier? Okay, thank you. I would just move to close the public hearing, for the aforestated, site plan application of Jim Stevens of Stevens Land Trust.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We are now out of public hearing. So that will turn the discussion to my fellow commissioners. Yes, Lynn,
Can I speak?
you may,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Fire chief, are you going to have a box? Cause I have one outside my gate, and if the fire department needs to come in, you can do something to that box, get in, get the key to open my gate.
That's
Are
the
you
Knox
going-
box.
Yes, are you gonna have the same thing for his facility?
Yeah, he has it on the blueprint on the gate,
Okay,
and when the building comes up, he'll have to have one on the building.
right, and it's excellent.
Yeah, I didn't know it, otherwise I had to put it on there. I mean, I know what they are, I just didn't know I had to have it on the building,
Oh,
otherwise.
it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna try to, again, Caitlin, Stacy, thank you for being here. I wish Tim was here, but, you know, he sent his written review, and you're prepared to speak to that if any of the commission has questions tonight?
Yep.
So as I like to do, I'm very sequential in my logic, so I kinda wanna just get a chronological understanding of the site plan application review process that brings us here tonight, okay?
Okay,
It's my understanding that the site plan review application was filed on or about May sixth.
Yep.
2026. There was a first review conducted by our township planner, Caitlin.
Yep.
It was, in so many words, it was determined that a revised site plan was deemed necessary for planning commission review.
Yep.
Is that accurate?
correct,
Okay. So then there was a second review by yourself.
correct.
Again, that letter was presented to the commission as part of our packet for tonight. The letter was dated June 3rd of 2026. And as you touched on earlier, there were a number of observations that were made. And I'd like to just drill down on some of them, adding to what you've already indicated, okay? And if anyone has a question at any point, please interject, let me know. But I just kind of want to work through this because there was a lot of needs and shoulds and conditioned upon. So for our job here tonight, I just want to make sure we have a clear understanding of what is or is not needed that may or may not have been addressed to this point, okay?
Okay,
Starting with the minimum site plan information. It sounds as though the recommendation in your June 3rd letter with regard to utilities and site infrastructure was to add
the
just-
porta potty note on the site plan, so that way from an institutional standpoint, yes, everyone kind of comments on it, you could shift through the letters, but site plans are easier if they just have that basic information on there, so that would just be a simple note to add to it.
And there needs to be nothing added to sheet C3 regarding no proposed well or on-site septic.
I think it does help to add that note in addition to that clarification, that's why the porta potty is necessary.
So looking ahead to a recommendation or to the township board for approval or not, is that a condition that needs to be specified if a motion is to be made?
So a motion could be based on all outstanding issues based on the June 3rd review letter. And so what you could do is if it's outstanding, then we would say that's obviously part of the condition. Same thing with fire review or engineering review. You would do a condition upon outstanding issues on the review letter. And then as we go through, there's the loading space, for example. That's a discretionary planning commission item. So as long as it's captured as part of the minutes, that what is the general consensus, that would make it so everyone understands the condition without making it into a 2-page motion, if that helps.
I don't know if it does.
Okay.
Caitlin, I'm a big fan of your work, but sometimes it's like drinking from a fire hose with everything you're telling me.
Okay.
So is item 1A on your June 3rd letter?
I think it should be required to be a condition, correct,
Okay.
But we
So-
don't have to list all these.
in a motion.
All she's saying is that these requirements by the expertise that come and do this work for us, Fire Marshal, OHM, Caitlin, these are their requirements to move forward with the site plan process. So you can say, instead of saying, listing all these, you can say per
The June 3rd review
The-
letter
per
from
the-
Waitrim.
from Waitrim and the review letter from OHM and the review letter from, all these conditions must be met in order to move on to the next phase of the site, of the plan, of this whole, of the process.
So for the sake of time saving, are there any items that you identified in your June 3rd correspondence or review that would not be deemed conditional or otherwise needed or outstanding for our purposes?
I need a consensus on the loading space, if what is provided is sufficient, or if an actual loading space that could fit a semi-truck would be required. That I do need a decision on. Everything else I think is reasonable to have as a condition of approval, presuming that the planning commission trusts administratively we go back and verify that information is provided, but you can't waive the lighting requirement. You can't consider it sufficient. It has to be addressed.
But you just referred to loading space.
Correct,
And
so
you
loading
added in
spaces,
lighting.
Loading spaces and landscaping are the two things that you guys do have
discretion.
discretion on. Everything else is the ordinance, it stays as it is, there's no changes.
And it has
Okay.
to be a condition.
So that goes to your review,
Correct.
right? So I guess we'll deal with those first, and I would, invite the input from my
May I
fellow
ask a
commissioners.
question?
Yes.
So, if we've got specifics that go against the ordinance, how in the world could this go in front of us as a site plan review and approval? So I would think that those would need to get addressed first before it would come here for us to review. Instead of having conditions around it, this should be addressed first. Then you come through with, okay, now we have a conversation on loading spaces, what we're gonna do there. The areas where we have discretion, but then the areas where it is a hard line from an ordinance standpoint, that needs to be cleared up prior to it arriving here. That's what I'm thinking, right?
That's not the proper
Am I not correct
process.
in that?
Mr. Chair?
I thank you, Angela. I think I do agree with you. Mike?
I agree to that. In reviewing this plan and reviewing the outstanding items on there, I do not believe that, at this point, that we're ready to make a decision on this site plan. Just simply because there's too many outstanding items on there that need to be addressed. And one that I am not necessarily in agreement with, and I don't know if this commission or the township is, but the foregoing of water and sanitary on a commercial development in a commercial site plan just begs for future headaches for the zoning administrator down the road when that property is transferred to another individual. There's no other, oh, you approved the site plan without a septic field on it. I think at a minimum, the site plan needs to address where the septic field and the wells go for the property, and even if it's a temporary basis for a period of time of not to exceed X amount of years, then they put it in. Michigan Building Code requires, even for cold storage buildings, and you can probably check the code, confirm it for me, Caitlin, I appreciate it, but Michigan Building Code requires at least one restroom, even for cold storage, and there are some very few exemptions, like agricultural buildings. Those will be, could be exempt, but we're on a commercial property here. And so I'm not opposed to a porta potty being on the property for a period of time in lieu of a septic field and water and stuff like that, but I think the site plan needs to have those on there. The also thing that was missing in this plan was architectural. I didn't see a building, plan nor a elevation.
There was one there, I gave that.
We are doing site plan only tonight, it has nothing to do with the construction of the building, we are doing a site plan only, those plans have not been submitted to anybody yet.
At least the building footprint
Well-
needs to be part of the site plan approval.
So the building footprint is shown on the site plan, and then they did provide elevation drawings, but noted.
Bottom line is, Mr. Chair, I don't believe this plan is ready for approval, tonight, and I think there's too many outstanding items. And by the fire marshal's letter too, I agree with that as well.
And we'll get to that. Mike, to your point about the water and sanitary, Tim's review, again, June 3rd, does indicate that the building department has authorized use of a portable restroom for the site in lieu of permanent facilities within the building. So, at least according to our township engineer, he doesn't have an issue with it.
Yeah, I'm just saying that approving the site plan without at least a location of a septic field or well is important for site plan approval. And it doesn't have to be put in, it just needs to be located.
But I guess and I get what you're saying, but I would defer to Caitlin, are we at that stage of the process tonight?
So, we do not have jurisdiction over how the building official interprets the building code. So and that was one of the things that, based on their proposal, that was early on flagged internally. That's why generally all of us consultants understand that is what's being talked about. It's the building official's job to interpret and implement the code. It would not be professional for me to come in and say, I'm not the building official. However, some communities, do put in like the future, and so that is a simple component where you could say it's a future well, it's a future septic. So that way, again, we're trying to save people from themselves on the longevity, so we're not asking him to get the county's approval for a well, right? So we're just checking that the engineer checked to make sure, did you meet the setback from a well to a septic? And did you have a general septic field location? That's what you're asking for. It's just, does the site work in which those could be put in, what would sufficient would be a future well, a future septic note. That's accurate?
That is accurate.
Okay.
Okay, so in simple terms, for my benefit, we're not to the point in the process that Mike's highlighting as problematic. Is that
Well, so
fair?
different planning commissions have different levels of confidence on how you go through it. So part of it is do we feel like it's a technical enough note that, again, these are all conditions, and so you could very clearly add to the conditions on top of everyone's review letter, you would like to see future placement of well and septic systems on the site plan. That would be checked administratively, even if it's not your eyeballs looking at it. Because that's a technical note, that this is the county rules, it is here, and that's up to you as a planning commission, what level or what do you want to see for you to feel comfortable doing it to the next step. Some planning commissions, they would say, this is a small enough list, I'm comfortable with us verifying it separate. And other planning commissions, if you want it perfect, you can, but it's also not uncommon to have conditional ones when it's technical notes. If it's discretionary, like the loading space, the applicant needs direction on that.
Well, I guess, me personally, I'm satisfied with going the conditional route, but I want to clearly identify what our consultants deem as requisite conditional items before we make any recommendation to the township board. And it sounds, and does anyone agree or disagree with that, other than, Angela?
I guess I disagree, because she just went out on Mike and said there are a couple areas that go against the ordinance, and my view on that is that needs to be cleaned up prior to it coming in here for a site plan review and approval.
But were those loading space and lighting?
Of course, against the.
Were those the two areas that you identified as not compliant, loading space and lighting?
Correct, because the other components are just notes. So like the parking lot, I wanted to specifically say like the 4-inch lines that are required in the parking lot area. So just so different things. So the only things of compliance significance, I would say, are those two things. It's not uncommon talking on drainage, keeping on that line of thought. The engineer's review letter talked about wanting to have official drainage calcs on the plan. So he looked at it preliminarily, doesn't anticipate it being an issue, but he would like to have it fully calculated out. And it's not uncommon that that's a condition as part of engineering plan review.
Okay, so can we seek some input from the applicant regarding the loading space element?
It is your meeting.
Yes. So.
I'm gonna be honest, I mean, I'm not having anybody come in there and load, unload. It's literally me and my son, or my partner, or unloading equipment. I don't foresee having anybody come in and load. Driveway's 20 feet wide, there's a 64-foot, by 60-foot wide pad there roughly, right? For turning around, it's, if I had multiple employees there, I agree with you guys, like there needs to be more than enough adequate parking and all that. Originally, I proposed just having a gravel drive going in, just because of the equipment, just damaging the asphalt over time, but it was an ordinance, so I'm complying with it, but I was just trying to keep it very simple, low cost, but aesthetically it looks good. If I have to establish where a well's going and where a septic field's going, my thought was down the road, if I did expand, I did have a plan, directly north of the pole barn, I was planning on putting a septic field back there, because that way I didn't have to worry about anybody driving on it or damaging it. So it'd be on the front portion, it's out of the way on the northwest corner. Mike has had it perked, the property perked twice. He showed me the original site plans that he had where he was originally putting the well. There's room there for me to put the well from where the parking lot is, so it wouldn't interfere. It should fit all the setbacks. So I can clarify that all on the site plans. As far as the lighting goes, literally I was gonna put one fixed lighting shining down outwards where the bay doors are, out into the parking lot. It goes out 20, 30 feet or whatever that minimum requirement was. I'm not looking to put stadium lights in and really, brighten the area up. I mean, quite honestly, Mount Holly is directly behind me and all their lights are shining right at me anyways, so, I'm trying to be fairly low key with this. I'm not trying to open up a Mars.
And that's appreciated, but we do have ordinance requirements
Sure.
that kind of filter into the whole process here.
I understand.
So just back to the loading space, one question, are you or is your company receiving or distributing materials or merchandise by vehicle?
No.
Okay. So just with regard to the loading space element, do we, as a commission, feel that more is needed?
Can I say,
Yes.
in terms of the loading space, I would say no. I mean, it's not like this has a dedicated shipping and receiving dock where you would need loading, semi-trucks coming in. If you're just unloading with a medium duty, heavy duty vehicle with a trailer or whatnot, to me, it's sufficient, or you shouldn't need a loading space. Now, future use, that's something else that would have to be entertained.
Well, that, like, the well and septic, that's a discussion for another day.
Exactly.
But for tonight, does anyone disagree with Angela with regard to what she just said about the loading space and not needing, anything additional, in light of what the applicants represented tonight? I'm fine with it. No objections? Mike?
What section allows that to be a discretionary item?
It's the purpose statement of the loading space requirement.
Section 5.35, because in all zoning districts, every building or portion thereof is occupied by use required, receipt of distribution of materials, merchandise by vehicles shall provide and maintain adequate off-street loading in zones. Is that a requirement or is that discretionary?
So it's a requirement if you have the merchandise material, that first portion that says that direct quote that I quoted, which is the receiving and distribution of material and merchandise by vehicles. So if it is doing that, absolutely, in a commercial and industrial districts, that shall be provided. But if it is commercial, industrial, not providing receiving and distribution of material, that's where it's discretionary, because it's a plain reading of it. Both have to be there to require it. And that's why I'm saying I want clarification from the planning commission as our intent for it.
So based on what Mr. Stevens just said, I think we're into the land of discretion. Would everyone agree?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Is anyone opposed, again, to, that a loading space is not required? Yes, Caitlin?
And just from looking at the building's future, that we hope they have a long, happy life in this existing building, but if there was a change in use, that would require a zoning permit. And so with a change in use, if they would come in administratively, we would check parking, loading space. They would have to go through some building code verifications and things of that nature for occupancy. But if somebody came in, has a different use intention, which says you need 10 more parking spaces, that would all be checked. If it requires 10 more parking spaces, we're doing another site plan, and that's before that person occupies. So it's not one and done and there's nothing left to do. It's a matter of, for this applicant with this use,
Yes.
this is what we're proposing.
Okay, thank you. All right, can we move on then? If there's consensus that loading space is discretionary and we're gonna exercise discretion to not require a loading space, can we then move on to lighting? And just with regard to lighting, again, can you kind of touched on the lighting aspects of what we need to clarify intentions here? What is it again, if you would?
As far as the lighting,
Correct.
so basically what I'm doing is just to fix the light, like right over the center of the garage, or between the two garages. So there's 3 garages, on this building, and basically right in the center of the building, I was just gonna fix the light that's fixed to the building, shine it down on an angle, just so you had a view of the parking lot and where you were going and all that. And that's literally it. That's for lighting. It's very simple. You know, whatever I need, and maybe a small access light by the door so that we don't trip, going outside or whatnot. But other than that, just very minor, I did, I was on Amazon. I didn't even really have a light picked out yet because I don't got the building. Sometimes you pick a light out, you don't know if it's bright enough or it's gonna put a wide enough beam out. Because I'd like to have decent lighting, so when I'm backing my trailer up and I'll back into my building or something like that and damage it. But
So, Caitlin, back to your review, the lighting was not only addressed as part of the minimum site plan requirements, but also as part of the zoning ordinance.
Correct.
Correct, right? So, given what Mr. Stevens just said about the lighting intentions, is that a conditional item for our approval that rests within our discretion?
Yes.
So where he's, go ahead, Dan.
It's our discretion to let it go, or
Well-
it's just a condition that has to be met
Correct.
on the updated paper?
Correct, so they
we don't have
have to meet,
discretion.
yeah, so they have to meet it if, as part of zoning compliance.
So Mr. Stevens gonna have to pick out his light, detail
Correct.
it, write out how many lumens, where it's mounted, and
Correct.
update the paperwork
Correct.
for a clerical.
right, I sent her a sample of one that I found on Amazon. Again, when you build, sometimes you put it in and you don't like it, you change it, put something else in, But again, I didn't think it's like stadium light we're putting up, so.
So again, back to your letter, Caitlin, what you've identified is, it's a conditional approval for purposes of this application.
So, so the discretionary component of the exterior lighting component is that, so there's the building where people are parking, and then there's a really, really long driveway. And so the discretionary component, just to verify what is a parking lot area, Is that where the parking spaces is, or should more lighting be required along that access drive area? So the applicant isn't proposing that, and I don't know enough about your planning commission's intention, which is why I flagged it to say,
So,
is that part of the parking lot area where you need to have lighting on that driveway coming in?
okay.
Or is the light only in the parking lot where parking spaces are proposed, where the building is the minimum needed?
Thank you. So given what Mr. Stevens has represented about, again, about the intention surrounding the lighting and the overall purpose of the proposed construction here, any thoughts or concerns about, going with just illumination for the parking area only, not the driveway?
I would say as long, man, say
Yes, Angela, please.
I would say as long as the fire marshal is okay with that, in case there is an emergency in terms of locating the drive to get in. I mean, to me, that should be baked into the, fire marshal, comments, but I didn't see it in there, so.
As far as lighting up the driveway,
Yeah, versus just the parking lot area, I mean, is that a concern if the driveway's not lit? So, that's the only
Is
thing
that a
that I
no?
would have.
That's a no?
I don't have a problem with it's not
Okay,
lit.
I just wanted to ask, I mean,
No, that's a good question.
I mean, we got the lights on the trucks, and we got
That's what I
emergency
figured.
lighting if we need more
Yeah.
lighting. We go down really dark driveways all the time.
Okay.
And you got, like you said, you've got Mount Holly there that's
Yeah. I mean,
making you glow like,
You're
you
not
can
gonna
see
have
it
that
from
battle
satellite,
of snow
right?
drifts before,
yeah,
on the-
So anyone have an issue with what Mr. Stevens has proposed then, given what Caitlin said? No objections? Okay. So those are the two conditional items, or two, I guess, items where you needed discretion exercised to support a conditional approval. Is that fair?
Yes,
Now that's the planner's take.
yes,
Can we move to the engineers?
yes, and I think that's simpler.
I hope so.
You don't waive engineering comments because the engineer needs to validate what they need to validate. So I would say everything that they indicate, I would say as drafted and as those conditions are laid out.
Okay, so then I guess I'll steer everyone's attention to Tim's June 3rd review letter. We've already talked about water and sanitary. Stormwater management, he indicates these items can be addressed during the engineering review. Again, that's down the road, correct? I'm gonna double back to the fire department, input that Tim references in his letter, but just with regard to paving. There was some indication that the cross-section, I don't know what he's referring to actually, the cross-section will need to be updated to reflect a minimum of 3 inches of hot mix asphalt over 8 inches of aggregate per township standards.
So it's on the last page of the site plan review packet, where they have the aggregate makeup of it. So we have engineering review standards, partly saving people from themselves don't build bad road, that can't support our equipment.
Doesn't that need to be an MDOT mix for a fire truck?
Just
Uh,
all purpose.
But our engineering standard says it shall be this, the planning commission cannot waive engineering review standards. They have to do that change.
Okay, very good. I would hope so.
Yes.
All right, so then the sticking point becomes the fire department, or maybe not. Stacy, again, thank you for being here. If we could just go to your letter. When I read your letter, I was concerned. And I guess what you've indicated tonight was just a bit, requires some clarification on my part. Because ultimately, in your letter, you said resubmittal, not approved, resubmittal required. Because there were a series of concerns that were raised in your letter But you've had some subsequent
Explanation.
interactions with the applicant, or you've reviewed additional materials, or how?
Yeah,
what
I
you're saying
did
is now-
talk to
now
him
with letter-
last Tuesday regarding the concerns on here. And most of those he was going to correct. Like lighting, the height requirement of lighting. I wanna make sure that the driveway is 20 feet wide, you have the aggregate on there, so it's an all-purpose roadway so that we can get our trucks in. I wanna make sure that the gate opens, that whatever way it swings, that I can still get a truck through, that gate isn't impinging on that 20-foot access, that there's a Knox box. It's not fire suppressed, so you don't need any water or anything there for fire suppression or sprinkler systems. It's 3,200 square feet and it's cold storage. The nearest water supply is right down the road. Some of the questions on here is a total site plan, which this is just the site plan review, not the building aspect of it, and some of that stuff goes into the building.
So, yes, Caitlin?
So a revised plan is still recommended. And so conditional approval, but we still have outstanding concerns. I think that's the essence of it. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, with the stipulations to make note of how long the driveway is it dead ends, where's the fire lane at? The gate dimensions, that is something that should be on a print.
Noted, but we don't,
Noted.
is it accurate to say that the current site plan does not need fundamental redesign
Correct.
to address those concerns?
Correct.
Okay, so that would be a huge red flag for us, if that was necessary. We don't want the parking lot to like double in size, and, well, that wasn't what we talked about as appropriate as a conditional review. It should have very minor changes from a conditional review and be merited then for the next step in the process.
So, no, another access is not needed, you don't need 2 access points or anything like that.
For a driveway.
So, again, Tim referred to the need for adequate fire protection per department review, by the fire staff. Do we have that? Is that a yes?
Yes. So adequate fire protection could be us just showing up at the fire truck. He's cold storage, he's not a high hazard, it's implements. That building is not required by code to have sprinkler systems, so you don't have to have water there to take care of that. I'm not looking at a fire well or sprinklers or grid systems or anything like that, because that building does not require to be sprinkled.
So what we're seeing, we just rely upon the written submissions we're given and our own, understanding of the issues drawn from common life experience, I guess. What's in your letter, Stacy? Is anything in there a deal breaker, for lack of a better term? No? All right, and Caitlin, would this be?
What I would say this is, in talking to Caitlin and listening to some of the others, are more housekeeping. Minor changes that need to be updated, but there's nothing there that you gotta have the whole site plan redone by any means.
So am I correct that Stacy's review, her assessment of the site plan materials is similar to your own, Tim's, as far as conditional items that need to be addressed pending final approval? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions or concerns about the fire department review, other than what we've discussed?
I do.
Angela?
I think the only question that I have though, it doesn't look like it requires any edits to the site plan. So I'm a little confused, because reading the beginning of your letter, it says the developer should provide the total dead-end access road length, the dimension turnaround, fire apparatus turning path analysis using the department's largest anticipated apparatus, and then confirmation that parked vehicles will not interfere with the turnaround. I would think that if any
you just clarified like you're loading and unloading. Like if you have a pickup truck and a triaxle
Right.
to unload your equipment, that's gonna be longer than my engine going in there. I'm not gonna bring my 48-foot ladder truck down there for that building.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So there's not a
Okay,
dead
I
end
s-
corridor like where you're going to, a dead end to the back of the building and it just stops.
I'm following you now. Okay, great, thank you for clarifying.
And I guess the difficulty, if I can be so bold, is, again, like, the letter conveys a message that seems contrary to what we're hearing tonight. And we walk in the room with an understanding of what the review is in writing. But if you're here tonight saying that these items are housekeeping, that this would fall in the realm of a conditional approval, I'm fine with that.
I would say it's conditional approval.
Anyone else? Mike?
I'm just still in disagreement.
Did you say you support, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, David. Please do.
Forgot my protocol. Are you saying that you would
I would say yes to a conditional approval.
put it, on the last page it says, not approved, reach to the middle required.
This was for like the full review, that we were missing some of those sheets. And then Danielle explained to me this is just the site plan. When I was flipping through the pages on here, I was looking for the whole blueprint packet. The building, like all, 30 pages of it,
Okay.
and this was just site plan when this was done.
Well, that's immensely helpful. Thank you for clarifying that, Caitlin.
Because the township is revising the review process, so we're bringing them in earlier than we ever have before, partly to make sure that we're setting up the applicant for long-term success. So nothing's worse than us saying, I did all the planning stuff, it looks great, except the fire truck can't turn around and they need that. That's a parking lot redesign in a lot of situations. So they're being brought in earlier, but we're not making them change their checklist to be only site plan stuff, because they have their whole book they have to look at. So those are gonna be lingering things we'll see moving forward constantly, because they still have the rest of the code to look at, but that information comes later when they get farther into the process.
May I speak?
Yes.
So it's conditional approval on taking care of everything that you mentioned there. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Got it.
And I appreciate being brought in earlier, because usually as the fire, I don't get to partake in this or see it until the end results. And then if there's problems, fire-wise, we can't. It's more difficult to fix.
Then we have a bad guy.
Okay. Dan?
Oh, I'm sorry, are we done with the fire?
I think so. Thank you, Stacy. Yes.
I have one question. You currently using the property now, or?
So what I did is, I removed all the fallen trees that were down and cleaned up. I got a couple dump trailers there, and I got an excavator and a tractor there. Just, I've been using it to clean up, put a fence in. The gate's already in, it's 20 feet wide to be exact. I know it's not spelled out on there, but it's already in, the gate's there, so, it's 20 feet. I did put a gravel pad going in off the road, so that way mud and stuff's not getting, tracked down the road. I maintain the grass there, I cut all the grass, it looks beautiful, it's nice and flat. You're concerned about the grade, it's pretty flat there, your grade's probably less than 1%. It's really flat there, so it's nice.
So the fence is yours?
Correct.
The fence is gonna stay?
Correct.
Okay, and that's called out on here, and it was,
It's screened in too, I screened it, cleaned it all up, trimmed the trees up along the road, keep people's cars from in it, cause it was all kind of overgrown, so I've made some improvements just to, one for safety for cars, but the other thing is make it look better, so.
good. And Caitlin, as part of your review, the landscaping and the fence is all up to ordinance?
Correct, so the applicant in the revised plans did provide, existing trees that they're maintaining, which then meets our landscaping requirements. In the first review that was outlined, that's not meeting compliance because it wasn't provided, and then it was provided.
Okay, and the fence, we don't have,
So I
we
believe that,
like fences, right?
so the fence is in compliance, I believe, with our approval
So we like
standards.
fences, right?
I hope so.
Good fences make strong fences make good neighbors, right? Mike?
Mr. Chair, again, I'm still kind of whatever the motion is, we'll work through that, but, that, you just brought up another thing on the landscaping and the trees, and one reason why I'm not a proponent for moving this forward tonight is because I don't see those things. Building heights, landscaping plans that have the trees, they have listed trees there, but, a good portion of them are invasive species trees, buckthorn, that are listed on there, things along that lines that we're counting towards their landscape requirements. Yes, I'm a landscape architect, but, you know, I'm trying to keep my bias out of this. So I don't think that the plans come close to meeting the landscape requirements. I don't know building heights, I don't know that stuff, that's all part of the zoning ordinance that we have in here, so I'm still a strong proponent for not moving this forward, including seeing utilities out there too as well. I don't think this is a complete plan. I don't think we can move, I personally don't think we can move it forward on a conditional basis until we see those items, and that these checklists that you identified on May 28th is taken care of. In the packet, there is a checklist that has many items of the ordinance that says no for the requirement, does not meet the requirement. So for that site plan review. So I'm gonna still be pretty strong on that. I think we need the information before us in complete form, according to our ordinance. And I need further clarification on, after the meeting, and sit down with the planner and understand what's conditional, what's not conditional, because I still don't understand the loading zone. So anyways, that's my piece on that.
Okay, well, thank you, Michael. Dan?
So I have a question going back to the fence, so the ordinance goes screening, right? So you have fence, is it fence or trees and vegetation, or both required? I'm just saying maybe the fence takes care of the tree question.
So I'll have to double check, cause I'll get my codes confused, but I don't believe there was a required screening between other industrial properties. And so, as far as a required screening, there isn't, but we do in our landscaping requirement require a certain amount of area of the site has to provide so many trees. And so that's where we do require landscaping trees in that capacity. I can't speak to maybe older site plans, it's a more traditional to have like right-of-way trees or parking lot trees. Yours has, based on the formula of the total site area, that's how many trees we need, and then you kind of figure out where you want to put them. And so I'm not sure if you're looking for that kind of component, where it's more itemized, but
I guess what I didn't understand is if it all had to do with screening.
no, not to my knowledge, no.
That's why I was wondering if it was either or, so the trees are landscaping, not so much screening as.
Correct.
So part of the issue with the utilities is when I reached out to the power company, nobody will come out and give me an idea of where the utilities are gonna go until I have an address. I went back and forth and it's been a challenge. And again, I'm not a contractor, so I don't know how to do this day in, day out, but I was very persistent. You know, I got some contacts through the company I work for, and everybody's told me that I gotta have an address, right? I mean, it's pretty simple. I'm gonna run electricity. Consumers is gonna tell us where they're gonna put it regardless of whatever any of us have to say, right? So we know it's gonna be there. I can't spell it out if they're not gonna tell me where they're gonna put it until I have an address. So, I mean, you guys gotta help me here, cause like, I'm trying to do the right thing. I wanna appease everybody. I wanna do the right thing here, but it's like, I'm playing tug of war here. And, you know, these are questions that I had known going into this, that you guys were gonna bring up and question me about, but what am I supposed to do here? I mean, I'm trying to be really reasonable as far as what to do. I got my hands tied. So, you know, I'm kinda lost at words. I don't know what to tell you guys. I mean, I apologize if you guys feel like I wasted your time, but, you know, I really wanna try to get this going, you know, and move along here, so.
Well, there's a process, Tim, okay, and there's an ordinance, and obviously, you know, we have to do what's best for the community. We wanna be fair, we wanna be, you know, kind of forward-looking as far as other property owners that may have similar aspirations like yourself. We're trying to retain character, we're trying to retain reputation of Groveland Township. So we have rules to play by. Unfortunately, those rules apply to you also.
Absolutely.
So it's a process, so just respect it. We're not trying to make your life difficult.
No, I totally understand that. I'm just saying, like, I'm trying, like, I'm still learning, so I apologize if you guys feel like, you know, we came here unprepared. We're really trying to make a go at this here, so, you know, I'm open to suggestions. If you guys can help me put a list together, like, I wanna get this moving, so whatever suggestions you guys have, especially Mike, just let me know, man. I'm pretty easy to work with. I wanna do it right. I mean, my name's on it, and my name means everything, so, I mean, I don't want things looking like crap. I mean, you can ask Mike, like, I'm really big on keeping things neat,
He's cleaned it up
and
considerably.
cleaning up garbage and everything. My name's on it, so I want it to look good too. Not only do I wanna represent the township, I'm representing myself and my family, you know, so.
So, if I may, thank you again. And given the concerns that Mike's raised, that I'm kind of hearing echoing from Angela, maybe others, and the good faith intentions of the applicant here, is there an option where some of these conditional items can be more squarely addressed? And if that is unwise or imprudent, I apologize, but I feel like there's a decision to be made, but maybe for a different day. Would anyone agree with that? Disagree with that? I mean, personally, I'm fine if the township planner, the engineer, the fire department is telling me these are housekeeping items and that for this stage of the process, there are no irreconcilable issues that cannot be dealt with on a conditional basis, I'm fine with that. But if there's disagreement, which I think I'm hearing from Mike.
Then the motion needs to be made on the floor, whether for or postponing or whatever, and then the board vote upon it and go for it. And just because one is a dissenting member, I myself,
Understood.
you know,
Understood.
that would be the thing. That's why we're a, 6-person member board. So we're 7, if I can count correctly. But anyways, I had a good teacher when I was growing up, so.
Not me. I was not his math teacher.
So, thank you, Mike, again. So with regard to, unless there's other discussion or dialogue, anyone wants to add something, Caitlin?
So just as a reminder on our approval standards, because we like to make sure we're making motions in consideration of that. So our site plan approval standards are based on it meeting adequacy of information, site design character, site aesthetics, which is landscaping, signage, etc., compliance with zoning district requirements, privacy regarding specifically sound and visual, emergency of vehicle access, circulation of pedestrians and vehicles, parking lot areas, drainage, soil and erosion and sediment, exterior lighting, public services, screening, danger from fire and hazards, health and safety concerns, and phasing of a project. This does not have phasing at the moment, other than the request potentially have future notes regarding utilities. That would be then considered phasing in a way. And so we just want to make sure that the reason you would approve it is because you generally find, based on those conditions that you're setting, those being addressed, these would be prevailing.
But am I correct? The scope of your review in the aggregate with Tim's and also with Stacy's would speak to all of those concerns. I mean, if there were concerns that needed to be brought to our attention, I suspect, I would hope, that those would have been part of the written submissions for tonight, correct?
Correct. We want a revised set to address those concerns.
The site plan's gonna get revised.
Correct.
It's just whether it has to come back to us.
Do
or
you need to see
We agree
that?
that the
Correct.
revisions that are being promised and talked we're good. We
Correct.
don't need to see it.
Right.
Someone else is gonna see it.
Right.
Normally it's
And that would be the board,
handled
right?
with the plant, no, the plant, the,
Not the board.
Tim will review the next one for.
Yep. And I don't know enough about the township process, but something that some communities do is we get a revised set before it goes to township board. So that way the list of outstanding issues is even less, now that you've provided guidance on some of the planning items. So that is something that some communities do. I'm not sure what your community has done in the past on things, but
After this one, when all these conditions are revised on his, we will get copies again, digital and hard copies. And, I would send them to the planner and I would send them to the engineer for their re-review again to make sure everything was good.
Okay,
And then it goes to the township board.
okay.
So it would ultimately be passed upon by the board after revised?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
Thank you. Dan, you had a question?
Mike, to make sure I'm understanding with Mike, cause I'm not, so if they revise their site plan and the fire marshal checks off that they got their things, Caitlin checks off, she's got her things, the engineer checks off, there's still something you wanna see?
No, there's a checklist in the packet of all the site plan requirements, and many of them say no, they don't comply. And all I wanna see is that the plan submitted, the full site plan submitted, complete with those checklists. Now, if there's a couple outstanding issues, you know, here and there, that lends a conditional approval in my book. But there are way too many outstanding items on the site plan for me to say, yes, I wanna move it forward. If I could sit here right now and make a motion to postpone till we get that, and then have this board, vote on that postponement and see how many we have. And if we don't have a full postponement, then the motion dies and you go on to the next motion. So, that's kind of my take on it.
Okay, so my question, this revised site plan is gonna go to the parties. You're gonna go through and make sure all those checks move from the no box to the yes box, right? That's the whole point of the revised site plan. So,
And the point is not to have it go another month to come back to the planning commission. The point is to do the internal review with our experts that know exactly what they're looking for on a site plan, which are the three. And then you turn it over to them again for their review on a piece of paper. That in turn gets sent over to the township board. And that is what the township board sees. They don't need to see all these little tiny
I'm trying to see
steps.
if there's a way to alleviate Mike's concern that these
That-
checks are gonna move from the no to the yes.
That doesn't,
No, but
that is just his, no offense, Mike, that is just Mike's
It's based on
opinion.
one person.
This is our process and procedures. So if he has something to say, he can definitely say it on his vote,
Yeah.
and it will be noted.
But I understand the point, there is that checklist with yes, no's, and NAs, and we're moving the no's to the yeses. You're gonna assure that with the conditions, right?
She's shaking her head, yes. Do we need a verbal?
Oh, if you want one, yes.
Mike?
I'm gonna let Angela go first, she's over there wasting her finger wanting to.
Just throw something at me.
I'm not gonna throw anything in here, but here's where I have a concern, and I know this gentleman's been working through it, and it's not your fault. But what my concern is, and I'm in agreement with Mike in terms of postponing, and I understand that you wanna push it through, but the problem is the experts have been working on it, and working with him since at least the beginning of May.
Yes.
And it got dropped on our laps. We were not made aware of this in the last meeting until just last week, where we received 6 days to review the entire package. That's where I have a problem. Now that we see a checklist that's got, to Mike's point, a lot of non-compliance, and oh, by the way, let's go ahead and push this through with a bunch of conditionals, no, I am not comfortable with it.
But am I correct, the checklist was prepared before the revised review, true?
Correct.
You did the checklist with your first review,
Correct.
then there were revisions made, and you did a second review after the checklist was authored,
Correct.
right? So I'm not
So
understanding.
But there's still, it's just respecting opinions, so that there's still outstanding concerns, there's still some preferences on what future should be noted or not noted, and that's just accepted.
There was a chunk of items that were addressed on that checklist, no doubt, 'cause I went through that second review.
Right.
But the thing is the June 3rd report still shows minimum site plan information. The minimum information to be provided on a site plan is outlined in section 7.4. The following information has not been provided. That's a red flag right there. Albeit it may be minor, I get it, but the issue that I've got is, at the end of the day, the site plan is incomplete. So that's where I start to have an issue, and then, oh, by the way, here's all these shoulds, okay, is it really conforming or not? We ironed out the loading space, I think we got consensus that, yes, it's not shipping and receiving, it could be, you don't need to provide a loading space, so we got that, you know, the experts got that direction. So the bottom line is, I don't understand, and I know that time has lapsed, but maybe it shouldn't have gotten lapsed this long to begin with. But the bottom line is what will it take to clean this up, bring it back in a month, and then it makes for potentially an easier review and an approval, because now we've got a complete site plan.
Yes, Mike?
I'm gonna make a motion, and let's see where it stands. I'll make a motion that we postpone the site plan, I'm sorry, I lost it here. The site plan SP 26-0001 for the cold storage warehouse on a commercially zoned property, parcel ID 0218351009, located on Big Sky Drive, Holly, Michigan. Owner applicant Jim Stevens, Stevens Land Trust, until next month, until the items that are addressed within the review letters are corrected and a revised site plan to be presented before us.
Second.
Caitlin?
With the additional condition informationally to add future well and septic systems.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have a second to Mike's motion by Lynn.
So you accept that amendment?
Yes, I do.
You
Yes,
confirm?
yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So any further discussion, or do we go to vote?
Go to vote.
Okay, all in favor of the motion?
I think you need a roll call.
Yeah, I think you need a roll call.
Danielle?
Lynn Shank,
No, I agree with Mike, I apologize, yes, I agree, but postpone, forgive me,
So, let's get this straight, so.
We're postponed.
postpone.
Yes is a
Yes
postpone,
is for
Postponement, yes,
and then a no would be for another action.
yes. Okay.
David Newbill,
What was that again? No means we agree with you?
No.
No, yes.
Yes, yes.
My motion was to postpone.
Oh, yes.
For Mike,
Angela Willis,
yes, for Mike,
Keith Wiederholt,
Yes.
Mike Dunlin,
Yes.
Dan Crimmins,
No.
Jeff Penzine.
No.
Motion carries. So just postpone.
It's postponed until next month.
Okay.
can I ask an additional question? Where was the potty gonna be, outside or inside?
Outside.
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 It's a porta potty.
I know, but still, they'll, if nobody's there, they're gonna fill it, like the cemetery. Where?
So Tim, you live to fight another day, as they say. I guess we'll circle back, we'll address the deficiencies, if I can call them that, with regard to the consultants. And, we'll revisit the issue in July.
Okay, so just so I understand, because again, I don't do this for a living, right? So basically, the letter that we got from Wade, the letter I got from the fire department, and I think engineering are good on, right? So those two, so
Engineering too.
engineering too. So what was it with engineering that we had to do with?
They had preliminary drainage calcs.
I got that.
Yes.
So basically, that's just surface area versus where water drains. Am I understanding that right?
More or less.
Okay. Alright.
All right, thank you.
Your engineer can help you show in the diagram it's customary.
All right, so that brings us to the end of agenda item 7. At this time, we'll move to unfinished business, item 9A, an update on Michigan Renaissance Festival 2026 special land use permit. Is there anyone here to update the planning commission on that issue?
Jeff, you know I'm here. Jim. before you go to the meeting, give me 10 minutes, I might be able to help you with your address for your electrical. Only because I just dealt with this at the Renaissance Festival. Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Chip Schultz, Michigan Renaissance Festival General Manager. You know, last year I was here and you guys awarded me a 3-year deal, which was greatly appreciated, and we had another fantastic season, and we were moving right along, right up until 2 weeks ago when I received a letter and also had a meeting with the Oakland County Sheriff's Office, Under Sheriff Willis and Major Yiser. You know, 2 people who I used to work for a long time, and we're friends with, who then advised me that the Oakland County Sheriff's Office was backing out of the remainder of the contract. So, the Oakland County Sheriff's Office is no longer going to be patrolling and doing traffic for us on Dixie Highway. And I'm here tonight just to make sure that you guys are clear that this had nothing to do with the Renaissance Festival itself. All of our bills were paid, we were in good standing with the Sheriff's Office. This was a decision made on their part due to a lack of staffing. Lack of staffing in the, just so there's zero transparency here, the Oakland County Sheriff's Deputies Union did file a couple of grievances in an unfair labor practice lawsuit against the Sheriff's Office for some things that they were supposedly doing. In a nutshell, if you had a start time of 8 o'clock, and it wasn't just the Renaissance Festival, Pine Knot, Meadowbrook, all these other special contracts that the Sheriff's Office has. The way it's set up is if we had an 8 o'clock start time, the deputy would leave their substation, say at 7:30. They didn't get paid from 7:30 to 8 o'clock, and they didn't get paid for the drive time back to the substation. So a grievance, an unfair labor practice, was filed against the Sheriff's Office because of that. I did sit with them, told them that we would pay that extra time, that we could also probably cut some staffing later in the season because of our well-oiled machine that I have going on right now with parking. We're not changing anything with parking. But to catch you up to speed, we have been in contact and I have met with the state police. They were out on site last week. I had the Lieutenant Beardsley, who's the post commander down in Oak Park, 3 of his assistant post commanders and the sergeant in charge of hiring. I have signed a service agreement with the state police to conduct traffic detail at the Renaissance Festival this season. I'm just waiting for that to come back from them. They seem very positive and very upbeat that this was going to be able to take place. So basically, we're going to be replacing the Sheriff's Department with the state police this year for traffic control. But therein lies the question, what happens now? And I know my agreement is null and void because part of the special land use permit, the parking was in part to the Sheriff's Office being there to conduct traffic. I think what we're trying to figure out is, do I have to do a whole new special land use permit when I get the signed agreement from the state police, or do we just take the Sheriff's Office out of it and put it in the state police? Because nothing else is changing. The way we're gonna do parking isn't changing. None of that's changing. It's just gonna be a matter of going from a brown uniform. Actually, they wear black now. To blue. That's what it comes down to.
Thank you, Chuck. So we don't get involved in contractual, minutia. But what's important, obviously, is traffic control
Absolutely.
on Dixie Highway and beyond for the event. So you're saying there is a contract, it's in the executory phase, you're just waiting?
Yes, I have a service agreement that I signed last week, and I've sent over to the state police.
Okay.
Lieutenant Beardsley is talking with his captain and probably some higher ups.
So is this, your being here tonight is appreciated, is this more or less advisory for us?
Just letting you know where we're at.
Okay. So, might I inquire, what's plan B?
It's a good question, Jeff. I don't have a plan B. In talking with some of the command officers from the Sheriff's Office, if it's a staffing issue for the Sheriff's Office and a staffing issue for the state police, they have a mutual agreement down at Somerset Mall in Troy, where they share responsibility. So there could be the potential, if I can't get the state police 100%, maybe I can get them at 50%, and then I'm gonna go back to the Sheriff's Office and see if I can get another 50%.
Because you cannot, am I correct, you can't have civilian road patrol,
Correct.
right? So you need the participation contractually, whether it's one or a dovetail of many, to guarantee that the traffic concerns are sufficiently addressed.
Correct.
Caitlin?
So I think the formal action we are looking for the planning commission to do, so I'm gonna read you the provision. So, if you go to the special land use article, it talks about major amendments require, redoing the whole process. So a republic hearing, things of that nature for a major revision. Minor revisions do not. So there is no definition in your special land use section that says what's a major, what's minor. So I'm gonna go off of what it says then in the site plan, because that says major, minor, and insignificant deviation. So if you're ready, I'm gonna read off what a major amendment is. And so what I would conclude is if we think that the change in contract from uniform, let's say from a Oakland County service provider to a state service provider, it's still the same level of service. Is this considered a major amendment or not? Which would then require that process. I would say very clearly, if the state does not come through with their agreement or for whatever reason, that would be whatever other alternative method. There is no other comparable for the Oakland Sheriff Department, which we had a clear understanding of. There is no other organization we can glean to. So that would trigger whatever alternative we come up with, or the applicant has to come up with. But more or less, state and Oakland County are relatively comparable. We haven't seen the full extent of the contract. That is something that we would be forwarded, and then we can verify that they are consistent. But for reading the major amendment requirements, a major amendment are those that are considered by the zoning administrator to have a significant impact on neighboring properties, the general public, and those intended to occupy or use the proposed development. All other requests for amendments to an approved site plan shall be processed in the same manner as a new application. And there's more there, but it's not as substantial to our portion of the discussion.
That's the definition of major.
And that's the definition of a major amendment. So again, the key part to indicate is a substantial impact on neighboring properties, the general public, and those intended to occupy or use the proposed development. That's the most important part of that commentary.
Okay.
May I ask? Or
Yes,
Andy?
Cecil, please.
Because to me, you don't know if it's major until you actually see the contract that is agreed upon between, Renaissance Festival team and the Michigan State Police. And then that contract needs to be compared to the Oakland County one along the lines of number of personnel, the times, the coverage, all of that was previously laid out in the Oakland County Sheriff contract. If it mirrors it, then in my eyes, it's minor and it's a drop and no harm, no foul, we move forward. But if it's very
But if
different,
it's the same.
then it's considered major, and then that, I would think the application process is through.
So maybe that's a question for Chip. Are there, to your knowledge, are there gonna be any variations in the contractual underpinnings?
It's just the amount that I'm gonna pay them versus the sheriff.
So I guess we just need to see that that's the case, right?
It's some financial stuff where we the only change.
Yeah, and I would just say,
We don't need a meeting.
block that out, because we don't need to know that, but I think that's the thing that we need to understand is
And actually,
the services that they're gonna provide, as well as the number of folks, you know,
and they've
the
already,
coverage and all
the
that.
state police have already reached out to certain, command officers from the sheriff's office
Okay.
to talk about, you know, how the sheriff's office conducted traffic,
Yeah,
which is crazy because I created that whole plan.
yeah, I'm sure.
And I've actually given them, the sheriff's department, SOPs for the Renaissance Festival, maps of where to park the cars, how the traffic comes in, how we egress the cars. So they're pretty much gonna follow the sheriff's department's handbook on conducting traffic. I had a very nice 2-hour meeting with them the other day and, they came out.
So Caitlin, then back to what you just had indicated, how do we, in the moment, without seeing the contract and without knowing?
So I think the general consensus is, well, what you would need to determine is your general consensus, is do you wanna put your eyeballs on the contract? Or would you agree that as long as the underpinning of the contract is the same and you trust staff to verify that, from the two different entities? So if you agree with staff can review it, check the underpinning, those are the same entities, you agree that is not considered a major amendment to their special land use. If that is the consensus, then you wouldn't see it back. If you would say that you don't feel comfortable with that and you want to re-see it, you would say you're unsure if it's considered a major amendment and would anticipate to see that on a future agenda.
Thank you. Mike?
Mr. Chair, I think that the question of major and minor, I think that as long as it substantially matches the sheriff's staffing and everything that you have that's going on, and it's just a matter of contractually, you just gotta figure out how to pay them. I think that's, in my book, a minor adjustment, it's just sheriff and state police, right? So as long as that, the number of persons, the way you do it, but, I mean, cause that's been successful for a number of years now,
3
right?
years.
So I think at this point, my feeling is that it would be a minor. If that were to change and the state police were to go and rip that plan up and say they wanna do it totally different, that would be a major.
So, and I would agree. I would agree with you, Angela, what you had said. If it's like, as Chip had described, if it's a blue uniform now doing the same job to the same extent as a brown uniform, that I don't believe is a major amendment. Keith, Dan?
Yep.
Do you have consensus on that?
Yes,
But,
I mean, Chip, when do you think that you'll at least have like a draft contract or something? How close are you with the Michigan State Police in terms of coming up with, setting aside the financials, but the terms in terms of staff?
The lieutenant told me last week that it would take him about a week to, he's gotta go to his captain, the district
Yeah.
captain, and then through the ranks. I can reach out to the lieutenant tomorrow, or maybe have a little help from a township supervisor, to make that phone call as well, to see where we're at. With it, I know that the sergeant that I spoke with, who I've been emailing with, he's on leave this week. I just found out this afternoon. But I can make some phone calls.
So here's my recommendation. Because this thing has been contentious over the years, as poor Chip knows, especially with traffic control. I think it would be good to have Chip come back in July. Hopefully you've got something in hand that shows that, yes, it's an overlay.
Oh, I need to have
And then
something
we
well
can,
before then.
we can have it on record that, yes, this is minor, let's move it forward, make a motion, whatever we need to do and move it forward. Because when I came on board, when we went through this, it was a nightmare, it was contentious. This could be a big deal if it's not, if the resources don't match or anything, and then it ends up blowing up and we end up with another disaster. That's what I feel comfortable with. Uh-oh. Get on the dance and, but that's just my recommendation.
I can serve. That gives you a month time.
Yeah, and I would hope that they would also want
Yes.
to know what they're gonna be doing here. But as of right now, it's been they haven't said anything, like, oh, we don't know if we can do it. It's all been very positive. Looking forward, and I know that, they're also searching for avenues for overtime, so,
Yeah.
and this would be it.
Crazy drivers.
Right.
So they're gonna handle the stuff in
Yeah, all right.
Yes.
I just gotta check on.
Okay.
Alright, sorry. The recommendation is what?
My recommendation is to have Chip go back here,
Yeah,
and
we
see
can
if he
site
can have
plans.
the draft contract agreed upon, out financials, just so we know.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
got it. there a timing component that is concerning if he were to come back in July with the contractual goods? for the
Well,
first
it's,
of August?
in our ordinance, it does say that it's supposed to be permitted.
60 days, 90 days. Oh, where's that? 90 days prior to the expiration of the previous.
Should be permitted 90 days prior to the expiration, and the expiration is a year to year.
So,
The day that he opens this year, it would
I figured,
so I think from a strict compliance standpoint, the question, I think it still goes back to, is it a major or minor to change who is the receiver of an equivalent contract? If it is considered major, I would say that is a content issue, in which you would have that problem. If you were to not consider it that, it's fine that you still informationally wanna put your eyeballs on it and verify it. That's fine. We can still proceed with that without impacting the other compliance components. Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't, because that was a part of the original issue to begin with, was we did have to lay eyes on that contract previously to ensure that we were in agreement with the resourcing, how it was, being handled and things of that nature, because it was such a big issue year in the past. So no, it's not just the money, that's what I was saying, is it depends on what that contract is.
So the township would put together, but does the planning commission want to put your eyeballs on it? So somebody is
Yes.
going to look at the comparable, and I'm not sure if the township would have their municipal attorney review that, or something of that nature. I know I haven't been asked to do that in the past, but that could be something that is your recommendation, that the township attorney look at the consistent, if that's a more party that you're comfortable with assigning that role.
No,
But otherwise, if you want it to be you as the planning commission, that is a fine stance.
That's.
And that does cause a compliance issue.
so earlier you referred to administrative review to discern whether there's any,
Staff review.
a staff review.
So there's
Sorry,
a special
staff
land
review.
use amendment, and there's a major amendment or minor amendment.
But whether it's major or minor can be gleaned by a staff review as opposed to a planning commission review? Am I correct?
So technically, the zoning administrator can choose if it's considered a major or a minor. But since the planning commission is involved, and traffic is something that you could easily say affects the neighbors and the general purpose and the public area, and so that could be a concern, and that's why it's being brought to the planning commission. Does that help answer that question?
It does, but I don't like where this is going, frankly, because of the timing considerations. Compliance.
How is this different in previous years where we didn't have all our i's dotted, t's crossed in June? And it was still in July and we were working on it and they still didn't have a permit granted. But they managed to open on time, they got the permit. So I guess I'm struggling to understand, how is it a non-compliance if all we're asking for is a review of that contract and say, yep, check, minor, move forward. That's what I'm struggling with.
So, yeah, we talk about discretion and conditional. Can we make this a conditional review in July of the parking, or not the parking, but the traffic control contract that is in the executory phase with MSP?
So I guess I'm gonna try to rephrase it so I can understand our objective. So the intention is that you want to get the contract, but we obviously don't meet until the following month. And so we're presuming that we will, in good faith, allow them to continue to operate even though it's beyond the 90-day component there, because we are not an enforcement body, so if the township board wanted to do action on something, that's their discretion. And treating all parties equal as best to our ability. And I'm not aware of the timeline for when the sheriff told the applicant versus the applicant taking action. The applicant did notify the township pretty quickly, is my
May
understanding.
31st is the letter dated by the sheriff's office, and I met with them on June 5th.
So I think in short, the planning commission, when's the first day of opening?
August 22nd.
Okay, so So the only thing we would be violating is that full 90 days verification for operation. So that's your discretion, unless the township board says otherwise. But you are not an enforcement body, otherwise it's not like there's a legal fee that happens or something of that nature when they're late.
Mike?
Okay, I respect what you're saying, Angela, because I've been a resident here, and I dealt with, with traffic concerns and stuff like that, but, I'm still of the opinion that, as long as that the contractual number of people, the way it's handled, what it's doing, how it's doing, it matches up between the two uniform agencies, that it's just considered minor, let the township handle it. Again, if that plan gets ripped up, then that's gonna need a special use permit, and it's gotta come back before the planning commission and go through all that stuff, which I hope it doesn't. So, I'm of the mind, and all due respect, Angela, that I would consider this a minor, and keep it at that, and keep it simple to let the township staff look at that, and the attorney, if necessary, the township staff could make that call and say, this is kind of skirting that, and let the attorney review it and say yes or no. I guess to me it's a minor. I know what you went through, because we went through that in the planning of Holly Oaks, of the stacking and the things like that. We didn't want to do that as well. So, anyways, that's what I have.
I guess, when's our next meeting in June?
Well, it would be July 20th.
And when do you open?
August 22nd.
So about a month.
So that's a little over 90 days.
Well, no, we wouldn't be, you're asking to authorize the contract only 32 days prior to them, as opposed to 90 days prior to.
No, October 22nd is when they.
August.
He said
August.
August.
August, I'm sorry.
We're all over again. I'm 69 days away from opening it.
I thought you said October, I'm sorry. I stand corrected. In that case, okay, I'm
I
with
do
Mike.
believe in the past, the planning commission has awarded us a conditional agreement based on waiting for another, like this, in this case, the contract from the state police to be signed, and we've done that up until, I know my predecessor was here, I think, in August one time, to get the special land, so I mean,
Yeah.
and I wish I would have known in April that this was coming, because I'd have all the answers for you tonight, but, like I said, I just met with them on June 5th, and they gave me the letter dated May 31st, so.
So Chip, I see you're in a pickle here. I do see that you're kind of a victim of circumstance, just based on the date of the letter. I think sometimes as a body, we make decisions on what's known and reasonably assumed. And I do trust personally the judicious nature of our staff, and without naming names, I guess I agree with Mike. I would deem this, given that I was part of the planning commission that went through the fires of hell with the Renaissance Festival years ago.
Yeah, I was sitting right here.
And you were a big part of that, so you've earned some credibility and good faith. So I agree with Mike. I think it's minor. I think we could.
Yeah, it's really all it is gonna be just a changing of a uniform, maybe an ego, but, for the most part, staffing will remain the same, the traffic patterns will remain the same, nothing is going to change, other than a
And
uniform.
you're gonna continue like giving like the little flags and
Yep.
that to the folks.
Yeah, nothing's
in and
changing,
out, so
that
I
whole
get
thing that I wrote for you guys 3 years ago that we still follow,
It'll just be,
it's just gonna be a blue uniform versus a brown uniform,
I
or
mean-
flat, depending on how long they've been.
I'm okay with that. I got rain fade on August. I was thinking October for some reason, so my apologies.
So given, Angela, your thoughts are respected and appreciated. Any other voices on this issue, or do we have consensus with regard to the fact that this is a minor amendment?
Yeah,
Do you feel comfortable with that?
Minor.
So is there anything we need to do with this then?
I think we just need to exercise discretion in deeming it a minor amendment.
Yep, so I just checked with Danielle, so as long as it's captured in minutes that that was considered a minor amendment to the proposed special land use, it does not require a new public hearing.
But it-
And we will verify the contract for continuity.
So everything, that would be handled administratively, just like the contract
But with
was.
With a strong statement for the record that this is with express reliance upon the representations of yourself here tonight, Mr. Schultz, that, this
Yes,
will
sir,
be,
Mr. Chair.
this will be just the same business on a different day with a different vendor.
Different vendor.
Okay. Anything more on that? No? Okay.
I thank you guys for your time, and yeah, 2 steps forward, 5 steps back.
I do want to interject one more thing on this before we
Please
move
do,
on.
yes.
And that is if for some reason that they cannot cover the full resource, then I would ask that we call a special meeting, get you in, so you come up with your plan B and let's
Yes.
review it, okay?
No, I'm in complete agreement with you. Yeah. Thank you.
Good luck with your negotiation.
Thank you.
Hey, worst case scenario, we'll put fire trucks
So
out.
moving right along.
We'll put the fire trucks out there.
Moving right along to item 9B, the solar text amendment. This was, again, I'm gonna rely on my fellow commissioners because I missed last month. I know there was some progress made with review of the solar ordinance.
So,
Yes.
so I will, indicate that no good decisions are usually made after 9 o'clock at night. So it is your meeting, I will be here, but I don't know if you want to postpone the solar activity, cause it's not a short discussion.
Really? Mike?
Mr. Chair, at our last meeting, we went through exhaustively many of these districts that were for approval types,
Yes.
and I don't see the listing on here that we discussed the last meeting, and I didn't have time to go through meetings and stuff like that that had.
So to try to minimize the number of drafts, I did not resubmit the updated draft. So that way we get through the entire conversation. Based on the entire conversation, then you would have a draft 2 reflecting the comments from last meeting.
So I don't, in review of this prior to the meeting, I was at a loss where we left off even, so.
Oh, so
I was like-
my cover letter was updated, so, I apologize for that. I updated the cover letter that says, so where we started, here's where we're gonna continue the conversation. Next time in the draft, I can at least highlight, or we can try to make sure that that's more itemized for you. But I can do that next time, so it's easier in the draft.
What topics are we discussing tonight, and how long do you think that will take, to your other comment? I mean, 'cause
I don't-
we
I
got
don't-
through a majority of the ordinance, for approval types. What else do we have?
Well, so
I'm sorry.
yes, correct. We finished all of the, for the most part, on-site one. The rain check items included the lot coverage calculations for on-site, ground mounted, the screening. Wanted to think about that a little bit more. The extension of vertical and horizontal mounted solar facilities, and then any sensitive areas, again, having those spacings from eaves and troughs and things of that nature.
Which section of this draft ordinance is that you're stating that from, Caitlin? I'm sorry.
No.
3 point, what? So I can get to that point.
Sure, let me find that for you.
Because it stops at 3.12, REC rep.
Sorry, it's in part 3, so I'm gonna scroll through. Alright, so we left off at 6.45.
6.45.
Yes. And I believe it is under B with page 9. Because we left off on 5, so that's the different lot coverage components. We kind of called it in for a day. And so technically we finished the on-site discussion if you were so inclined, but, I think with commercial energy solars, as, Mr. Cribbins had mentioned last time, that there are some more content that was kind of talked about wanting to be added, to, meet some different policy objectives, and so I think that is a longer conversation. We will meet beyond 9 if you would like, but generally speaking, no good decisions are made after 9.
Mike?
Mr. Chair, I don't disagree with that last statement, quite honestly, but, someone said at the last meeting that I'm just looking for clarification on the process. Last meeting, we couldn't correspond to, Danielle via email comments on this, we had to do this in the public meeting. Wasn't that brought up at the last meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, so I felt kind of at a loss why I couldn't email some of my comments from this point forward, because I think that would speed along some of this review at these open meetings and stuff. So if we are allowed to email Danielle our comments on section 6.46 and beyond, and then you can summarize those comments of what we had in our I would like to see something like that if that's possible, because there's an inordinate amount of information that we're going through in a 2-hour period of time in a public setting, and I want full transparency, but I was told I can't email my comments to Danielle, or emails weren't appropriate for transparency. Am I wrong, or am I off on that? I'd like to be wrong.
I remember that being, off, because I do echo the concern, because I think at the last meeting, we were under the impression the only 2 items to be discussed were going to be continuing on with solar energy, and then we would start having a brief discussion on BES. And I don't think there was any anticipation to have a discussion on Renaissance Festival or, the site plan.
But that's not, I was,
But here's what I'm getting
Okay.
at is, I mean, you look at the time, you look at the time it takes to get through those items. To your point, having the comments get, at least, there's no opinions or no votes, it's not going to the rest of the members, but just at least getting them gathered, and then that way we can review those comments and then move forward.
and I wouldn't mind my email or however I correspond to Danielle being part of the packet, out there, because it's just my comments, right?
So an intra-body communication between one member to the administrator, how does that, if anyone said it, how does that violate Open Meetings Act?
Does it?
All questions should be brought up here about the site plans. Questions shouldn't be answered about the site plan that are not presented in front of a meeting.
But comments to the zoning ordinance.
Yeah,
If I wanna say that I think 15 feet high.
I just did it.
Yeah, because I know we had talked with Mr. Cribbins about,
Oh.
he had some suggested specific language and alterations, and I said, yes, if you could provide that in writing and then highlight those changes, it makes it easier for us to have that policy discussion,
So
so.
that's
That's
exactly
my
what
point.
Mike's getting at.
So I guess I think the inflow concern is that, let's say everybody kind of sits down and says, here's my page long of edits to it. Again, just semantics here, is that now it's becoming, I can see the concern where it's becoming less of a discussion point. Granted, you could put in the packet, but it's becoming less of a discussion point of the diocese, because then are we making policy changes based on 2 people that submitted written requirements, but not everyone else did? And so I think that it makes sense to, when there's specifically gaps or interest in stuff, that makes sense, but tweaking different provisions, that should still be a discussion of the consensus. So the example that was given is, I'm not gonna meet the 7.5 feet, right? So we had said, what is the range of a setback should it be? Should it be 5 feet or 15 feet? So getting 7 different emails that everyone put a different height, that's not helpful from a consensus and speeding up the meeting. But if there's content so some of the different content you'll see on solar is that you can limit how much, or some communities do, they say you can't have a commercial solar installation occupy more than 2 sides of a non-participating parcel. For some communities, that's of an extreme interest, that's not currently in your draft. So, but part of it is just a difference on legal sensitivity. But if there is concern about massive projects surrounding individuals, we can have that policy conversation, and it's easier to have as a diocese than it is individually, other than, I guess, knowing what those gaps are, so I can provide that information, like you said, and then it can be a more constructive conversations, because you could see in writing why I see the pro and con of that policy, and then you could come with a formed opinion. Does that
Can we do
help?
both? Can we do both?
You can email me anything. I think a lot of tonight's questions was procedural questions. Like all that stuff that was asked tonight, that can be answered before the meeting. Like we don't have to talk about how this meeting is run and how the procedures go inside this meeting. Those are questions that can be answered outside of the meeting before we have this meeting. Inside of the meeting are questions about what is on the agenda. Anything you need procedurally to know, Caitlin and I are both here to answer all the procedures you want.
So Danielle, are you referring back to the site plan review application discussion? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah,
I'm talking about just providing comments on this ordinance, the draft, so that I can put, just section 5.3CD, I'm commenting this is my comment, period, end of story. Can I email that to you?
Yeah, you have the right to email it to them,
Okay,
and then have
and
it
I'm
in
not
the plan.
violating anything, I just wanna make sure,
No.
okay. That, then,
And then those comments that he gives can be shared with the Thorough
Correct.
Commission in advance of next month's meeting to expedite the discussion, so we know what
because you
everyone
vote the gaps.
here is
you can
thinking.
do that, but it
And it
needs to
will-
be well before the meeting, like 2 weeks before the meeting takes place.
Trust me, I was prepared to do it after the last meeting, but then that discussion, I walked out of here and said I couldn't do it, so I figured I'd wait till this meeting here. So,
I
it's fresh in my
apologize.
mind, it'll be before you in no time, trust me.
I apologize for that if that was the misunderstanding, but I was trying to indicate, yes, we want comments, especially on like gaps and things, so
Right.
that way we can
But
provide
you-
you that information ahead of time. And
Right.
so there are a lot of example languages out there and ifs, and if those are of concern, happy to bring those forward.
So for the point, the discussion points moving forward, then 6.45 is where we left off, and comments from 6.45 onward is probably the comments that we should give to you, because we've already reviewed all of those other things, and then you could put a full draft together or something, you point out the gaps at the next meeting.
Correct, so if you would like, I can make you a draft too, because I already have the edits from our previous meeting. I wanted to be careful on people getting misstepped on second meeting, third meeting, now we're on draft 2, and people were like, oh, but we didn't finish the full review together. So whatever direction you want, I can accommodate.
Jared,
Yes,
I would prefer to.
I think I agree.
Okay.
I think I agree. If everyone is on board, like that would kind of expedite our dialogue on the review of the solar ordinance. This is solar ordinance only, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
And so you want a draft 2, and then obviously that draft 2 would then take out any highlighted options because we've already addressed those. And then the consensus is that individual members, if you have content gaps or different specific preferences, things of that nature, you would provide that in writing
Yep.
at least a week or 2 ahead of that meeting so it can be incorporated in the packet.
Yes.
So if it's 2 weeks before, that helps me then to, again, provide my information that then goes into the packet, just so everyone understands that, why the necessity for that
So the
timeline.
planning commission homework is next 2 weeks, get your stuff together and get it into Danielle.
Yes,
Okay, done.
Okay, does everyone understand that? Steve?
Thank you, Dan.
Hmm?
All right, so understood, if we have consensus, then we will go in that direction. Any further discussion on the solar text amendment item?
I'll make one comment.
Yes,
It's more global, but I think they're, from reading the proposed, and reading some of the best stuff, I think we should keep, there may be some sections that are identical.
There
That
are.
can all apply to all technologies. The decommissioning stuff, the keeping track of owners so they don't sell to somebody in Columbia everything. That stuff can be global across all technologies, so just, I know as I'm reading some of this, it's like, these really could be similar.
Yeah.
Or
So, does that kind of dovetail us into item 9C, the best text amendment? Now, I guess,
Because the cover letter for that, based on our last meeting, we just had a quick policy discussion on what are the things that we really want to hone in on. So I just provided that cover letter that says this is what we're going to focus on. I guess between now and in the next 2 weeks, if there are additional things, please let me know and we can add that to that list and
so
have a targeted list so it's easier to go through.
I do have a question on that, Caitlin, because your letter was kind of non sequitur when it comes to what it's referring to. Like, section 6.44D makes reference to setbacks on page 3, but if I look at page 3 of draft A, there's nothing there about setbacks.
Oh, that's weird.
Right, so it was very confusing to me, particularly given my absence last month, as to where your review was referred to.
Well, I apologize for that. The page numbers are clearly wrong, but is the section number reference correct? So the section number reference,
I don't think the section number is even correct.
Cause it's a 44.
Oh.
Yeah, there's no 44 on here, it starts with 6.6.1, so I'm not sure on the sections.
okay, well, I will clean that up obviously for the next one, but the content that was flagged, so setbacks was something we wanted to review as a group, the adequacy of maintenance agreements, those are accurate, correct?
I agree with that.
I can't speak to that.
We didn't even review it, so none of us can really speak to that, so this wasn't even a review at the last meeting.
Well, we did brainstorm what content was concerning.
Right.
And those are the items we talked about.
Yeah, and then I tried to put them by content so that way it would be a little bit easier, so I apologize for the references, I must have opened up the wrong, draft version on accident, talking about performance bonding, even though the sub numbers are correct, so the 6.44 is incorrect, but the D, the J, the NOP, the O and the U and the W appear to be correct, and then new content regarding technology on site regarding the battery composition and cooling systems, etc. That's not currently covered in our content, in our zoning ordinance.
Thank you. Mike?
So again, if I'm allowed, I would like to email my comments on that and then discuss the gaps at the next meeting.
I would concur. Anyone opposed to that?
I am. And here's why, I think we're putting the cart ahead of the horse. I still believe we need more of a high-level conversation on the direction we're taking best. If we're taking it as a while, if we're taking it as a hard wire into the ordinance, or if we're not addressing it, period. And I think before we start wasting time on draft A, and we go sideways, I think we need to have a more high-level conversation before we move forward.
So Angela, thank you. That was part of my notes tonight, was just to kind of throw that subject out there, because I do question as individual members of the commission, where do we rest, each and every one of us on our tone as we contemplate whether Ohio is a wise move, or is the better default option, not opening the township to that technology and forcing that vendor to go to the state? Is that the better option? What are the thoughts on that, if any? Dan?
I have a question, because I'm not sure if I'm remembering this correctly. I thought we were instructed by the board. weren't we instructed by them to
So-
come up with a?
Ordinance.
So the planning commission reinitiated a motion to review the 3 different uses under the PA 233. So the township board had provided some general guidance, that they were interested in that, but the official action was done at the PC. And so the PC, your job is to create that draft in the completeness that you think is appropriate to then take action to recommend it. Or recommend not to do anything, but since you initiated it, I would say procedurally you can choose to revoke it again and cease to operate it, or cease to work on a text amendment.
I'm gonna throw out the word while. I'm just looking at this as an ordinance for BES or for data centers or anything. I think we need the ordinance. I think that's why we brought it back up. I think we don't want it, we want that local control, at least in part, regardless of what, they can do with the state. So I think that we need to draft that ordinance, and I think that, and it's my opinion in reviewing briefly, but, in part, all of the efforts that the resident committee put together, they had some pretty constructive, stuff in there, information in there that can really help guide this board and the township in the, drafting of that. So I'm of the mind, draft the ordinance for the BES and move forward with that and then get it taken care of, because I don't think we should just leave it solely in the state's hands. I think it needs to be local control. As much as we can, I should say. Caveat that.
Any other thoughts?
I agree with Mike.
Yeah, I'll interject, and definitely a while to me is not the answer. I agree. I think where I'm struggling with is, cause I was on that committee, same with Jeff. And we know we were uncomfortable at that time because we're not experts at the end of the day. And it's very new technology, just in it myself, it's evolving by the minute. I would say if we go in the direction where we want local control, I agree, it needs to be hardwired in the ordinance. But I'm uncomfortable because of the fact that technology is evolving, and what I'm afraid of is, are we dotting i's and crossing all the t's, that's all. And I know it's late, and so I don't wanna wage a view one way or another at this point.
Well, going back to the notion of no good decisions are made after 9 o'clock. Are any other members willing or wanting to voice their opinions on the broad spectrum of Ohio or nothing? David?
My only concern with embedding it into all the ordinances, and since I've been on the board, we haven't had one thing come in front of us from the planning commission. And if we're gonna go through every one of our ordinances to embed things in there, it's gonna take years, especially if we only do it in the 2 hours of this meeting.
So that is to say that you believe it's an exercise in futility?
No, I think it's, I don't think we'll be able to get it done. But we gotta, if we're gonna have a standalone ordinance, we already have a framework for it, but if we wanna, we'd have to go into every one of our ordinances to embed it, then we've gotta review every one, and every cross-reference, and every one of them has to be reviewed, so we have to go through everything.
I don't understand the cross-reference, because I think how we were gonna lay this out is an alternative energy section, so it'd be in addition to what we have, so it's basically a chapter, on its own, not embedded in.
Well, that's not really embedded then, that's a,
Not,
that's added.
it's in the ordinance, a while is a word incompatible.
Well, we're gonna write an ordinance, what kind of ordinance it is determined by the content. If it's workable, incompatible, or if it's compatible, that depends on the content of that ordinance, it's still an ordinance, it's still a public ordinance.
You want someone to call on you?
Yes, please.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so I think there's a little bit of technical jargon that's being misunderstood. And so the acronym for WYO, at the base, any text amendment you do is its own ordinance because you're incorporating it into your zoning ordinance. So if you're doing a WYO or you're doing an ordinance, at the end of the day, everything is going to have to go back to zoning because that is the police power that controls the uses. Does everyone follow?
Yeah.
So the real question becomes is do you be proactive or reactive to creating policy regarding commercial solar, regarding BESS or wind energy or whatever the conglomerates, whatever use comes to pass. If we're gonna talk about exclusionary zoning where there's nothing in there, and what do you do then? So PA 233, there's a state process. So if it's not listed here, they automatically get this is what you have to do, but we could say locally the answer is no. The only thing is that you have to stand exclusionary zoning, which is that there's no adequate need for that use, and that there's no appropriate location. So that is a legal opinion. That is not a planner opinion. And so that's something that if that is the rate to go, you do have a newer municipal attorney. I've not corresponded with them. I do not know their stances on these things. Other than my understanding is if we choose not to act and only have a state option, he's willing to defend that because that's what some communities are choosing to do.
And maybe I'm wrong on this, but I thought the workable compatible ordinance was reactive, where you were putting together a special ordinance for one particular company, and then later on, you may adopt the areas to embed into your zoning ordinance.
No, it in your specific township it was reactionary because you had an applicant, but all WYOs are just you're making regulation that's deemed workable at the local level to have a local process and not have a state process. But at the end of the day, I think what you need to focus on is what policy does the township want to hold in those uses, and whatever acronym you use,
It doesn't matter.
it doesn't really matter as much as you say, this is our baseline for what our community needs to feel like this is a safe or reasonable use here, or maybe it's not.
Then what's the point of calling it incompatible? What's it incompatible to?
Incompatible to the states. And so when you come to your own ordinance, some of the different applicants would say it becomes a non-workable ordinance, but also is something that is you're looking at something that isn't consistent with what the state guidelines are. So a CREO is adopting actually what the state guidelines is at the local level.
Yes.
And so when you're talking about what level of approval or not approval you're talking about, you're either providing a local path or you're not providing a local path. That really at the end of the day is where we need to sit. Are we going to do that? And whatever regulation we come forward to, it should uphold what we think is necessary to be a safe operator in our community and legally enforceable.
So, Caitlin, as we contemplate, a solar ordinance and a BESS ordinance, are these mutually exclusive, or should we be considering them in the aggregate? If that makes sense, because I think personally I see varying degrees of risk associated with certain technologies, right? And being through the BESS process, I learned a lot, and I also learned a lot about Public Act 233. We had a vendor at the door, and there was a belief that things were going to happen that never did. And I think the state path is not as straight and wide open as people may believe. I think it can be as cumbersome, if not more so than what we were talking about here at times. So personally, I tend to agree with Angela, maybe poured out of experience, that there is a benefit to essentially saying Groveland Township is not open for business. Go ask the good folks in Lansing.
And I think and that's where the master plan comes in as well.
Well, and the cynical part of me tends to think that the legislators have pressed down a very contentious issue to the local governing bodies. And we are dealing with, you know, a lot of the contentious, the acrimonious response to green energy. It's very difficult. And there were enticements tied to, you know, monetary whatever. That's now sailed. So, as I understand it, correct? There's no more.
We're not looking for any type of incentive one way or the
But
other.
that's not right. That's not even part of the scheme anymore. So, in my opinion, like, we were kind of forced into a position that circumstances have changed, right? And we know some things now, and I don't know, maybe I've said enough. Any other?
So, I guess it's up to you. Before we were gonna start the commercial solar, this was the intended conversation to have is, do you want to proceed or do you want to not include it? Based on the discussion we just had. And so I don't know if you want to have a general consensus on commercial solar and BESS, if you decide to continue to move forward with the text amendment to address it, or you say not at this time because of there not being a sufficient need or an adequate thing, and then the township then needs to move forward
And
accordingly.
that goes back to my question earlier. Are they mutually exclusive? If we,
Well, they're different uses, so you can make different decision on different uses.
so can we not put, a text amendment together for solar, but at the same time choosing not to act on BES?
You can. They're different uses.
So what would be problematic about proceeding down the course further on the solar ordinance text amendment review? See if we can get consensus on a recommendation to the board on that. And then, given what we've learned, maybe apply that, depending on consensus, to move forward on BES. There's no time considerations at the door currently, are there?
I think the townships continue to get inquiries, but as we know that the official applicant has withdrawn from the local process, I believe they withdrawn from the state process, but I don't keep up on all those matters.
So it's a measure twice, cut once scenario, in my view. We wanna be very careful with just proceeding forward and creating problems that maybe would not exist otherwise.
And right now, being that it's not addressed, I'd say let the vendors keep coming. Bottom line is, being that it's not addressed, the answer's no, until we come up with something. And that's what it boils down to. We do not have it addressed in any form of ordinance currently, so the answer's no.
But am I standing alone with my assessment that solar is a different level of
It is a different
complexity and
It
risk
is,
than
yes.
BES?
Now, we'll have another conversation on commercial solar. I'm not gonna get into it tonight, but I'd like to have a discussion on commercial solar. I'll just leave it at that.
Mike?
Mr. Chair, in the 5 meetings I've been to, we've got roller coaster back and forth on this discussion, back and forth, back and forth. I'm gonna be blunt. I think we should just draft the ordinance and get it over with, and draft it in conjunction with solar. I don't know why, I'm sorry, I don't know why it's hard to do that, because there are a lot of common elements with alternative energy, and we can certainly do that. I'll go back to our resident committee, who, I sat up here last meeting, and I'll be honest with everybody that's a part of that I was very skeptical on it. But the information that's been provided is very concise and thoughtful. So I think we have information from a planning standpoint to move forward with that. I don't wanna keep arguing back and forth whether or not we're gonna do a BES, whether we're not gonna do a BES, whether we're gonna do a solar, whether we're not gonna do a solar. Let's just do the damn thing, excuse my French, and get it over with. Pull the Band-Aid off and be done with it. So I think we have enough information. I think we're getting more information as we speak. And we have active community members that are also providing the board and the planning commission the information. So I don't think we should leave it in the state's hands.
Other thoughts? Thanks, Mike.
Just to concur with Dan's position and what you said earlier, they're not mutually exclusive, they can work together. So that if we get through the bulk of it in the solar, the front end piece on the BESS is different, but some of the backside is the same. So it's decommissioning and, monitoring ownership.
So you are an advocate of proceeding with the WIO? Yes?
An ordinance, I only wanna know.
An ordinance, right, okay, that addresses solar, BESS, wind.
Well, not wind. We're not bringing that back up.
That was last meeting?
When was vetoed last meeting?
Okay, thank you, Keith.
Because data centers is a different animal.
It is.
David, Lynn?
I agree with Michael.
Yeah, let's get it done.
All I have to say, we're getting it done, that means we're acknowledging that we're okay with bringing this. That's it.
No.
No, we're not.
No,
No.
that's what we're doing, folks.
Okay.
If you're putting in an ordinance, you're fine with the best, as long, because what are you gonna do? Turn somebody down when they're meeting everything in the ordinance. That's what I'm saying, that's where you've gotta be careful in terms of when you draft an ordinance, when we don't. When you draft an ordinance, you're saying that you're okay with having the best in your community, depending on the zoning and whatnot, and meeting all these requirements. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay, so, yes,
Which agenda?
we're
I
on,
want you to skip.
we are on 11C.
I wanna talk it.
Yes. So, Angela, thank you. Obviously, there's different opinions. I think we do have consensus, though, from what I'm hearing, to continue forward with solar review, with the best review. Maybe if we can stay on the course of doing our 2-week homework, if you wanna call it homework, to kind of fuel the dialogue next month, and kind of, I guess, crystallize it for discussion. Would that be okay? Everyone good with that?
It's fine.
Angela?
Yep, that's fair.
I mean, we put in a lot of work, and the community is heavily invested, and they are, standing alongside, helping us unravel the yarn here, so to speak, so. Is there anything else we need on that, before we move to 11D? No? Okay. So everyone, continue the review of the solar text amendment and the best text amendment that was included in tonight's materials. If you have any written thoughts to present to Danielle, please email those to her within 2 weeks, okay? Moving to item 9D. Now, Dan, this kind of hits on something that was asked to do last month that you actually did, correct?
Yes.
So, you
So
could,
I'll just explain what it
Please do.
is, just for the board, so you can read it and everyone can. So, to Mike's comment, because it's very slow going, trying to work through a specification or ordinance in this a lot of time. I had done research online, like our committee has done, looking up best standards. I found some from other communities. I guess I'm admitting to plagiarism, but I found items that, based on my review of the leases that were temporarily adopted by the township board, concerns that those raised with me, looking at these ordinances I found online that I think offer protections against some of that stuff. I took our draft A and added in as best I could, because I'm working in systems that aren't compatible, so. I worked in these things I found in these other communities' ordinances that have worked these things out and have these in place. And I added things in that I thought protected the township and were things that were not in our draft A. I should also note, there was a draft C at one time where the fire marshal added some comments in. I added those comments in my draft D as well. So draft D is stealing stuff out of other communities around the country and our our fire marshal's comments that were made. I believe some of it can overlap depending on whatever renewable energy we're looking at, things like, such as, maintaining ownership records, maintenance agreements, augmentation, decommissioning. I think those things should be common amongst all these companies to make sure the township's protected for any cleanup activity. So, I'm not emotionally attached to it, again, like I said, I copied it off other people, these aren't my ideas. But I guess I'd recommend reading it, and draft A is still in there, so everything's in addition, pretty much to draft A.
So, in your draft D, which was in our materials for tonight, there were a series of highlighted sections. Were those additions? Is that what you're?
They're additions.
Everything that's,
There might have been one or two words I changed it from draft A, but the content is there. That's why you might see a duplicate, like there might be a landscaping section and a screening section, because I didn't wanna delete our landscaping stuff that you had in draft A, but I wanted to add that I found similar to these other ordinances. And there's some of the stuff, like I said, I didn't dig into the research of how they developed it, such as, the ordinance I looked at only classified two sizes, that's small and large. And the small number is in there, it's a small number. I'm assuming they did some research as to what a person might want to power their well or something in their barn versus selling it off to the, so there could be numbers that would be tweaked, is all I'm saying.
well, thank you. I guess, review of draft D.
In no way am I advocating for one of these facilities.
So I think this kind of flows nicely into the review of draft A, and coupled with the comments that Caitlin had identified for tonight's meeting that we've discussed. I'm assuming that there can be some feedback given on draft D. Everyone
So I think
see
as
it,
long as we
right?
have a consistent starting point, so if we do restart this on D, then I can make sure that the updated letter then again, you're welcome to submit those commentaries, which sounds like we're deliberating towards, and then we can go by section and try to more pragmatically go, all right, we're gonna talk about splitting this into two. These are the two different ways that have been discussed. What do we have our consensus? Is that fair? That's what we wanna do.
Yes, Dan.
I'll just comment, because it took me forever to type that stuff. Can we please start with D?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Start with D?
Start with D.
Okay.
So
You can throw out whatever you want, but
Okay.
okay. So add that to the homework for next month's meeting. Anything else on unfinished business?
So
Sorry,
your
this
homework
taking
is to
so
read the D and have questions ready? Is that what your homework you want your?
We're gonna submit comments or submit.
Correct.
If there's again gaps in language that you like from other communities, just send that
So
in your
that's
email.
all what you're submitting to me?
so along with our comments on solar that we were gonna get to you quickly, the best would be just start with D since I already have some of those comments.
Yes.
So you're gonna submit comments on the solar and comments on the D?
For best.
Correct. All right, thank you everyone for that. Returning to our agenda for tonight, and again, thank you for your patience, those here tonight. We're gonna go into public comment at this point. Just a couple reminders. Please direct all your comments to me. Everyone will be given 3 minutes to speak. Please do not interrupt. Once your allotted time is complete, please wrap up. Respect the fact that we do have a timekeeper. Caitlin, would you?
Yes, I can do that.
3 minutes for us. This is not a question and answer. You folks have been here before. You've done this many times. It's your opportunity just to make public comment, not to engage or invite dialogue from the planning commission members. Due to the number of people interested, if somebody says something that is kind of redundant of what you intend to say, please forego being repetitive if possible. You cannot donate your time. I made that mistake one time long ago. I will not do it again. You cannot donate your time to somebody else who does not feel compelled to make a comment. Please, no applauding, no cheering. Just be respectful of one another's time. And at this point, I would invite public comment if anyone wants to do so.
I'll go first, if that's okay.
Name?
Melissa Ford, and I'm the chair for the Groveland Resident Advisory Committee. I'll kind of give my committee update now. I know it's on the agenda, but I'm only going to take like a minute of your time because you guys are fun enough. Thank you, first of all, so much for allowing our community and our residents to participate, cooperate, and hopefully help. Our goal is just to kind of lift the burden that's been placed on all of you guys, because you guys have had a tremendously heavy burden placed on you. And also try to make it easier, simpler, cut to the chase. We're trying to mow through the weeds and give you a path that you can take, that you can feel comfortable with. We're providing sources, evidence-based information. We're all in this together. And we realize that this is a township. We have goals to increase our business, but we also have the goal to protect our community and our public health and safety. So, thank you again. I do agree with you guys on Ohio's not really necessary. Ordinance is an ordinance. Ohio kind of gives, it's just a semantic, really. It just kind of gives that permissive pathway idea, even though it really isn't, but it's not necessary. Let's not get confused. Ordinances, I think they're good. And Angela, to address you and the concern of when you write an ordinance, it can be permissive. I agree with you on that. But I also think if we focus on thresholds, so don't get too much into the weeds on the details. If you say thresholds and you keep everything in what is the capacity of this community and evaluate everything that way, it makes things so much simpler. And that's the route that I've gone with the data centers. What you'll find is when I've done all the analysis, the big things is data centers at the end of the day are not compatible with this community's character. However, you have to avoid any kind of exclusionary zoning, and so it's important that we define what our capacities are. So that's what's laid out in all that documentation that I gave you. It is legally defensible. We have had experts look at this. I have probably spent the last 120 hours of my life diving into this full time. And I can do that this summer, and I'm gonna see it through to the end to help you guys, because we're in this together. So again, I appreciate you guys, and I'm gonna say
Thank you,
and
Melissa.
give my time back.
Appreciate your comment. Yes?
Tom Phillips. I want to talk about what she did, but first, on Big Sky, a few things that concern me. I think the building needs to be 1 foot higher. When it's not used as frequently as this one, water can run in that building with a little snow. Yeah, I studied the site plan. I don't think it works, but it's a super easy fix.
I'm sorry.
Cold storage. If it's truly built uninsulated, it's gonna sweat inside, and my concern is the typical fix for that is flammable. That's really not zoning, it's once there's a set of plans. I think that BESS, solar, and data center have to be packaged together because in some cases, they're on the same site. Frequently, solar and BESS, phase 1 is one of them and phase 2 comes quickly. I don't think it's so much of not in this township, but not with low bid technology. If the zoning for light and heavy industrial truly protects the environment, there may be something 5 years from now that is acceptable. Something other than those, some industry could look very bad because of noise or pollution. So if the standard is trying to protect for everything, it's probably easier to enforce. It doesn't look like you're picking on one thing.
Thank you, Tom. Anybody else? Senator Johnson, thank you for coming.
Thank you for allowing me. My name's Ruth Johnson. I'm your state senator. I've been elected since 1989 to represent Groveland Township, and I'm proud of it. I served co-chair fighting Stable X, which tried to put some of the worst toxic and hazardous waste in our mine out gravel pit. And Chris Maniaci and I were co-chairs of that. I learned a lot about the hydrogeology, the topography, and especially how our wells work. It really kind of also dovetails into this. And so, but first, I just want to thank each of you, because I served on a number of committees in the 80s, and they're not easy. The commissions and the committees township are harder than actually being Secretary of State, because we never had all of this going on. So you get, people talk to you one-on-one, and I appreciate that. I also appreciate the Groveland Township Resident Advisory Committee that I think is doing a fabulous job. The product that they've come up with is better than you see at the state or federal level, I think. And I'm gonna read real fast because I want you to know just a couple little things that I found out as a senator about data centers, because they're trying to go into different places within my district. I represent 4 counties. And the biggest thing is, if you use this lean model, they were going to get a permit to emit 7.5 million tons of contaminants. That's just in the air, not the water, that's even more. 7.5 million tons into Groveland Township. We have appreciably none of these that they would do. And then I thought, well, how does that look when you look at an auto plant, right? Because I have Lake Orion too, and there's an auto plant there. So I asked, how does that relate? How do we monitor them? How do we put laws, and what do we do? And it said auto plants. Any resident can access today for free online the following: EPA's TRI database showing every toxic chemical emitted in the last year by the name in pounds. Eagle's NPDES permit database showing every effluent limit and every monitoring result and for every discharge. Eagle's air quality permit database shows every air emission limit and every compliance certification. EPA's enforcement and compliance history online, it's called ECHO. The database shows every inspection, every violation, and every penalty assessed in the last decade. The facilities SPCC, which is their spill plan on request, and TRA data going back to 1987, showing a full 35-year history of the facility's environmental performance. This is not hypothetical. It exists right now for the public. And then I looked it up for data centers and BESS. And what I found out is today, what a citizen or local official or someone like you that serves on a board, you can access virtually nothing. Zip. None of these things, and they're heavy industrial, they're big polluters, all of them are. And I don't know if you've looked at online at all, it is bringing our nation together, every party, every age group, because these facilities get around all of our rules, all our laws for other things. And what they create is, what they can cause is heart attack, stroke, hypertension, asthma, COPD, lung cancer, premature death, cardiovascular disease, increased mortality, airway inflammation, asthma attacks, reduced lung function, increased respiratory, leukemia, bone marrow damage, Legionnaires, and it goes on for 5 pages. So that doesn't include the noise, which can go 5 miles, and there's a vibration too. Closed loop or open loop, they both are bad news, because closed loop, they do blowouts, and those are the chemicals that are so bad for you. And the decommissioning is $5 million for each pod of a BESS plant, and $200 to $300 million to decommission. These are limited liability. When they walk away, we're stuck with it. So I would just hope to keep that in mind as we go forward. Thank you very much.
So, thank you very much. And it took,
I have lots of
it
paperwork.
took a lot of restraint not to bang that hard. It's out of respect for you. Thank you for being here.
May I
Anyone
turn in
else?
information for the record?
Oh, sure. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie?
Start my timer. I just want to say good evening to the chair and the members of the planning commission. And I want to thank you, Senator, I just added this, for speaking tonight. You're the first person addressed in our Stop BESS petition to speak up, and the residents are incredibly grateful for your support on this matter. I'm speaking tonight to address an undeniable violation of transparency regarding our master plan update. February 4th, over 18 weeks ago, a quorum of this planning commission held a master plan workshop at Camp Tamarack to deliberate on the future of our land use. Under the Michigan Open Meetings Act, Section 9, proposed minutes and records of public workshops must be available within 8 business days. Once the minutes are reviewed and approved at the following meeting, the corrected or approved versions must be made available to the public within 5 business days. Under FOIA, raw data, public comments, and surveys collected during that workshop are public record. Instead, the information from that workshop was withheld from the public for over 4 months. It was only after direct public pressure at our last month's planning commission meeting, May 18th, that those 4 sheets of paper were suddenly slapped on those walls behind you, just in time for the community event, May 20th. And a measly 5-page fragment, pages 42 through 46, were thrown onto the website May 19th at 4:53 p.m. as a synopsis. Surely there is more information from February 4th, and if not, why? Slapping stickers on a paper is not a substitute for the statutory public participation mandated by the Michigan Planning Enabling Act. Mr. Chair, I am directing my next point specifically to our professional planner present tonight through you. Please do not claim this workshop was just informal brainstorming. Under Michigan law, if a quorum of this commission meets to deliberate on public policy, it is a public meeting, and the public has an absolute right to the data. You cannot ration out our master plan in just a few page increments and expect us to be satisfied. To this part, I'm very concerned. This is coming from my heart. I told you guys all the time, if I was sitting in that chair, how would I want to be talked to? I want to speak directly to the procedural timing that this commission is currently pursuing. And even tonight, you spoke to Mr. Donnelly. And Mr. Lederholt, both. There has been discussion only to push to pass a renewable energy and data center zoning ordinance while our master plan remains unreleased and unadopted. Now, I'm still working on this and looking at the different laws, zoning and such. So I'm gonna verify my facts, but we don't want to allow a developer to prove to the state judge that our zoning was passed without an updated master plan to justify it, or issue a state certificate that steamrolls our local control. Both the revised master plan and the proposed renewable energy ordinance must be simultaneously reviewed by the planning commission to guarantee full statutory compliance and total transparency. I'm just concerned that if we don't do this, that we may end up with some legal loopholes that developers can go to the state and under 233 undermine and undo all this work that you all and that we've done. That's where I am now studying and learning. And I just ask right now that the unredacted draft of the master plan update be printed, published immediately. The original worksheets need to be posted publicly here at the township office. We need to stop hiding data and just spoon feeding it, comply with laws, and give our community the transparent planning process that we've asked for.
Thank you, Carrie. Just to remind everyone, I'm a very patient person, but we did ask for 3 minutes, and given the time, I ask that you would respectfully adhere to that. So would anyone else like to make a comment? No? Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. That is always appreciated. 11B. Hang on, 11. 11B would be July's agenda. We have obviously some homework that will be revisited with regard to solar invest, including draft D. We also have an update from Machine Renaissance Festival with regard to the contract transition, if you will. Anything else?
I'm just like,
Well, I'm assuming Mr. Stevens would be back in July with the second revised site plan application. Anything else?
Anything can come up between the next 2 to 3 weeks, so be prepared to have more.
Any other thoughts thoughts for July's meeting? No? That will probably be plenty, given